People are gonna ask me why my computer's like facing that way instead of.
No one's gonna
Me.
ask. Who's asking?
Everybody, dude.
See?
Gonna say like,
Who
hey,
asked?
bro, why is your computer?
No one asked
Bro,
me these questions.
They don't ask you. I'm the face of this thing. They always ask me all the questions. Like, when are you gonna do this? When are you gonna do that?
Bro,
When are you gonna have women on the show?
Who asked you that?
Everybody.
Who's asking? And welcome back to the Remnant podcast. Of course, like always, I am Luis Olvera, aka Audio Life, and this is
Danny. Oh,
So, Danny. As you can tell, I own more than just black shirts. I actually own different color shirts. I mean, this is pretty dark, but I mean, it's still all the same.
well, at this point, people might think that we did the 2 episodes in one day because I'm wearing the same sweater.
Ah, nice.
I'm trying to brand. I'm trying to brand people. I'm
Is
trying
it
to
the same hat
brand.
though?
No, different hat.
Okay, then yeah. Oh yeah, that's the wonderful world of video. Just,
right?
Yeah, you can do it all the same day. So it's been a couple of days, raining outside.
Yes, love it.
What do we got today? Well, what's going on today?
So today, if you people know, you better know because this is a special show. Oh, I'm rapping today.
Yeah, I know.
I'm kind of fanboying out today because today we reached out and he finally got back to us, and it is.
Why are you making it sound like he's been ditching us, man?
Wow,
finally. I know. It sounds like he owes us money.
This guy. I mean, gee.
It's the host of the Street Gospel, David Arevalo.
Street gospel, light up the tempo. Sword swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Blackberry.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Up? It is a honor and a pleasure for you to
I like
come
the way
on,
you said my last name.
on our pokey little
That's
show.
how you say it.
No, it was good. It's just that on the show, everybody calls me Dave One, but you said David Arevalo. I haven't heard that since like it was in
Since the last time you got arrested.
Since like it's like my Spanish teacher or something, bro.
Oh, is that bad?
No, it's good.
Oh,
I
okay.
said I liked it.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
Cool.
thanks
Except for the part, yeah, you sounded like he was ditching us.
I know.
yeah, look it you. Thanks for having me on the show. First of all, okay. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I
Right.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming.
No, I didn't put you off. Like I think you hit me up for last. I think it would have been last week, right?
It was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And then you were like, "Oh, we could do it this Saturday." And I'm like, "Well,
yeah, because it's
It's my schedule.
This is
No. The
this
problem
is the
usually is with guests. It's my schedule.
Okay.
Because I'm the one running around all over the
but,
U.S.
But he asked me right away, and I said I could do it this Saturday. I'm free. And then he goes, "Well, let me get back to you." And I guess that was the conversation.
I'm usually the conflict.
Yeah.
So wait, so you're putting me off, right? I wasn't putting you off.
And then you hit me up Monday. You're like, "I'm free this Saturday." I'm like, and that's when I texted Louis. I was like, "Bro, you better be free this Saturday. I don't care what you gotta do. You gotta drop it all because David's coming in."
Well, I technically can't drop it all. I still got to go to a birthday after this.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I hate when people do that to me, bro.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. You get guests, and then they say, yeah, I'll get back to you, and you're like, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, what is that? What's the time frame here? You're gonna get back to me by what day?
Right.
So I always try to tell somebody like, hey, I'll get back to you by Sunday, or hit me back up Monday.
Right.
I like when people do that. So, I try
So
to- I
again,
try to do that.
for those that are joining us and don't know who our guest is, just in case, we got some new followers. He is the host of his own podcast called The Street Gospel, and
Street Gospel Podcast.
I feel a little humble. I've seen a lot of the episodes, and just the production value, the quality of everything is up there. I've
Cool.
seen
Thank
your guests, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I actually, as we were starting this podcast off, I looked at some of your episodes, and I'm like, oh, that's how you should ask that question, or this or that. I kind of,
thanks, man.
yeah, I kind of grabbed some stuff, especially when we did the interview with Pastor Rob.
Yeah.
You've had him on before,
Right.
So I had to be like, okay, what don't I ask him that's already been
That's
out
good.
there?
Yeah.
This and that, whatever. And then we went down the deconstruction rabbit hole very quickly. And it was an amazing experience having him as our first guest versus, Knucklehead 1 and 2, just back and forth.
I figured people might get tired of just seeing both of our faces only.
I think that's a good thing, though, that you said, because I think I learn from other podcasters too.
Yeah.
You know, if I listen, I'm like, okay, I like the way he answered that. You know, he asked that question, or you know, I think, you know, Joe Rogan, the best, right?
Yes.
I think
Top notch. Yeah,
he lets people answer. He lets people talk. You know,
Right.
I sometimes get a bad habit of jumping in. My wife will remind me, like, "Oh, you kind of jumped in on that."
Oh,
part.
good. Our wives remind us
your
too.
wife too. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
like, My
biggest
wife.
biggest supporter.
Yeah.
And
My wife
Always.
is the reason we have these branded cups. She's like, you can't be giving away free branding to
Right.
other companies.
right.
Mm.
Yeah, she's a big part of the podcast. So I have to listen. But I don't really go back and listen to none of my podcasts. It's rare.
Uh-huh.
You know, I have to go back and get some clips
Right.
and tell Cam to cut, you know, this part or that part of a clip to make for social media.
Right.
But I try not to go back and listen, because I always feel like, you can get better, but I feel that in the moment, sometimes things feel right. And I don't want to overthink the next podcast. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh,
Okay,
I get it.
yeah.
I get it. I get it. No, I have to see it
Yeah,
multiple times because I'm
everybody's
editing.
different. Of
I'm editing
course.
it, and then he double checks the work.
But with that said, do you ever get into the mode of like, that's I sound so stupid, or I shouldn't have done that, or why am I sitting that way, or look what I'm wearing?
Yes.
See,
But-
I don't want to.
Okay. Yes, but
I don't want to
like,
think about that.
True.
like it's just from camera angles point of view, from production point of view, but nothing like, oh, this and that. I feel that our first couple of episodes, I'm going to say the first 5, when it was just us, and even the one with Pastor Rob, like we've been learning and adding and stacking up, and be
Every
like, okay, we
single
don't do
time.
this, we don't do
Yeah.
this, we don't do this.
Right.
We have a table now.
Yeah.
We were sharing this space. Now we're not. So things have changed around here.
Right.
Mics and everything else, you know, they keep improving as the time goes
Sure.
along. But that's like the only time I really get into, let's say, my head when I'm editing or anything like that. That's about it. Like, okay, what can we improve, this and that?
Right.
Me sitting in this position is because I was like, oh man, it's not a fat joke, but you hide me. You hide me, Danny. I'm sorry, from the camera. So now I have to sit kind of in this interesting angle. But yes.
So you don't do the podcast with Danny. You do the podcast amongst Danny.
Oh man.
I'm not going to tell you where I stole that line from, but it is a line in Bronx Tale.
Oh,
But,
okay.
yeah. But he's talking about a big guy.
Yeah.
So yes, you understand my pain.
But you know, I get what you're saying though. So you're looking at it from audio video, and I'm always looking at it from audio video too.
Mhm.
The quality, how can we make it better? Why does it sound that way? Da da da.
Right.
And yeah, in the early beginnings, it was rough. I mean, we had the Roadcaster like you guys, which is the best.
It's the
The
best
the
piece of
mics.
machinery.
I mean, this is unbelievable that the mics are. I mean, $100 each. You know, maybe
Yeah.
less. Right? I mean, they're great mics. I think, but the cameras, that was our biggest thing for a long.
Oh, that's our
time.
biggest thing now. Like
Right,
sometimes
still.
they work, sometimes they
Some of
don't.
them.
Sometimes what happens, sometimes I got to make miracles out of whatever I got.
Sure, I know. So I think it was funny because we were running off camcorders,
Okay. Uh-huh.
right? The little handheld cannons, right? They were good, but
Yeah.
they weren't sharp.
Mm.
Maybe 720, maybe.
Oh.
So my buddy was like, hey, maybe you should adjust it, you know, so they look more. And I was like, and then he's like, you should do this. And he's sending me like these little clips of these guys that are working with DSLRs and
Mhm.
whatever
Right,
else,
right.
right? And I'm
Right.
like, bro, I sent him a picture of the camera we're working with, right? It's
I'll
a
be
little,
like, this
it's
is
a little-
already adjusted to the
the little
best.
Canon one, right? But
Right.
it looks like a little Canon, right? And I go, this is what we're working. And he goes, oh. He goes, really? And I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what we got.
So
Yeah, I don't want to reveal what we're working with. Like,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
are going to be like, how? And I'll be like, hey,
Hey,
Jesus, right
we,
there.
we make it work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what we do.
But that's a good thing. I mean, there's the power of the internet and podcasting and everything, anybody can put it out. And I
Yeah.
tell people that all the time, like
Yeah.
young guys, what do I need? How much money do I need? So just get your phone, dude. If you really want to record a podcast, put it on your phone. Or if I get young guys and how come you don't put me on your podcast? And I'm, I'm very respectful, but I'm
Right.
thinking, bro, this is not that
Not
level.
your- you're
Right.
not
But
a-
instead of telling them like, you're not a good guest for my show.
Right.
I tell them, hey, why don't you create your own podcast, bro? you have a great, and they'll be like, because they're telling me how great their story is, right? They're like,
right.
20 years old, and they're like,
They lived a long life.
Podcast, bro. I can really bring it. And I'm like, you know what? So I don't want to shoot you down. I don't want to shoot them down, right? So I'm like, Lord, help me, be sensitive to this young guy. I don't want to crush his whole spirit. But I'll say, hey, man, do you have a phone? He's like, yeah. And I go, dude, you can create a whole podcast off your phone. Yeah. And he go, if you have a great story, start off with your story, and you can start your own podcast.
Hey.
Right?
Right.
Might as well. And so it gets kind of a little tricky sometimes.
I still have yet for someone to ask me anything like that. Actually, before we started filming, we were going over the things that people are asking Danny that I haven't been asked. What were some of them? Or why don't we have women yet?
Why don't we
coming soon?
Yes.
Coming soon, but not yet. Why don't we have women? What's the other one?
Man, I'm trying to blank.
You said something about the laptop.
Oh no, I'm just saying that they'll nitpick. Like, why is your laptop?
See,
crooked?
but nobody's nitpicking me
because they know that you're the video and audio guy. I'm like the social media handling person or other. I'm the one that reaches out to people, and they're like, "So we're gonna talk to that guy."
So I know, I know.
They could punk you over the audio stuff. If they try to go to him with the audio stuff, he's probably gonna be like, "Look."
Oh yeah, I got the answer.
He's the expert.
I got the answers.
Right.
So I know I know it sounds like we're going completely off topic, but the reason we're bringing all this up because again, David is also a podcaster, so we assume that he's had similar situations. Yeah, but now let's get back to the topic. So who is David? Who are you? Like, what's your backstory?
Yeah. What's my backstory? How far do you want to go back?
Let's go back, way back in the day.
Way back.
When how does that saying go? When shoelaces were fat and Michael Jackson was blank?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think you go back a long way. Well, I grew up in Southeast LA. I was a young kid born to teenage parents, unwed. My dad joined the army when I was, before I was born, and they were, he was from the neighborhood. He was from the Florence area. Him and my mom, they grew up there, and they got together and they had me. My dad left the army for a year, try to, I think, get his life straight a little bit, and that didn't work. Got out of the army and went back to the neighborhood.
Got out or kicked out?
No, he got out.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
He just, in those days, it was a little different. In those days, they would take anybody.
Oh, okay.
And so you would go and you would try to straighten out your life or get some sort of footing on life. And
right.
So my dad was eccentric in that way of being from the streets and growing up rough, but he was really patriotic. So he liked that. He joined the military and then he got out, and then they raised us. We had my sister Diana. You guys know my sister, and then they had my sister Della. And then when I was about 6, they gave their life to the Lord.
Wow.
Got invited to a church, and we started going. Prior to that, they would send me to church on a bus.
Okay.
I was a little kid, and this was old school, man. They would send a bus to our apartments, and they would put
growing up. Yeah, growing up.
You remember that?
Growing up, well, we didn't have a church bus. We had like the van.
The van, yeah.
The van, and
yeah,
we were the furthest out because we were out here in Weeder. Our church was in East LA, like out there off of what used to be Brooklyn and McDonald. Now it's just at Chavez and McDonald, but out there.
Right there. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So we would go. I went and got some sort of sense of God. And when my family got saved, they got saved. And so I got saved when I was 6 years old, man.
But why just you? Why not them? Like, why were they sending you off? Like,
they were little. You know what I mean? I was 6 years old. They were, Dana was like 4 and my other sister was 2. So they weren't
right. But were your parents going at the time? No. So then how
I would go with the neighbors. The neighbors would go.
Okay.
And then I think the aunt or somebody would go. So I would go with them on the bus, and then they would bring you back. So, I mean, dude, it's funny because I walked to school when I was 6 years old.
Dang.
6 years old, I walked to school by myself every day. So, I don't know. My parents, they weren't good parents, I guess.
Either that or they trusted you.
Or they grew up without parents themselves.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So they were on their own at young ages. So I think they thought like, oh, he's fine. Just going to school.
This is what they
Dale
do.
mijo.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I used to
Okay.
walk from
Just take the candy. It's fine.
Salt Lake Apartments, past Florence, all the way to Corona Elementary. I mean, it was a good little walk, for a kid, little kid. So we got saved, and the Lord touched me, man. I had an experience. I had an encounter with Jesus, and I know there's a lot of church kids that don't actually have an encounter with Jesus when their parents get saved. They kind of they just go to church. It's just a thing. It's just a hobby, And I've talked to many guys that've been on my podcast where they don't have an actual encounter with Jesus. They go to church, they do the Sunday school thing, their family's saved, they see God move, but they've never had an encounter. But I remember having an encounter. I remember the Holy Spirit touching me and really being saved and really feeling the Lord. And that kind of kept me, all through my youth.
That's awesome. I don't think I got to experience a touch from the Holy Spirit till I was 12, 13.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, I felt like I just went to church, talk to people, Jesus, and then go home.
Right. I think I didn't realize that was an issue. I thought everybody was like me. So when I started talking to guys that grew up in the church and maybe fell away and they came back later on in life, I was talking to these guys and I was like, so what happened? And they were like, what do you mean what happened? I go, you never gave your life to Jesus? And they were like, no, we were just going to church. We were just, my parents were saved and some of them were pastoring and they were just like, but I was like, but you never got touched? No, I never had the encounter. Like what? And I was blown away because I was thinking in my head, like, what do you mean? And I went right to my wife and I said, because her family came when they were like 10. She was 10. And I go, did you have an encounter with Jesus? She says, yes. She rebelled when she was a teen, but she said, I had an encounter. And that was always in my mind. Like the Holy Spirit would bring things like, don't do that. And I was like, yes, that's what I always had. I always had that because I had that encounter. And I was like, I don't understand these people, these
guys,
my friends, they didn't have that. And I felt for them. And I started asking and doing like a little research, like, so did you have an encounter with Jesus at a young age? And some would say yes, and some would say no. And I was like, whoa, it's good. We bring the kids to Sunday school and we're bringing them to church, but are we really making sure that they had an encounter? You know what I mean? Like, did they really feel the Holy Spirit? Did the Lord really touch them? Because I think we kind of lose that. We think like, oh, we're saved. We felt the Holy Spirit.
Right.
But did the kids, when I think about Cam, my producer, my son, like he'll tell you. I remember when I got prayed for. It was from our friend Ronnie Chavez. He prayed for me and the Holy Spirit touched me that day.
Wow.
And so I see that, you know what I mean? So I think it was really eye-opening for me. And so if, I think if you teach kids or you have kids, pray that the Lord touches them, that I know they give their life to Jesus. I know they're probably good kids, but pray that the Holy Spirit, 'cause that's what's going to sustain them through the years.
That's one thing that we can actually say with assurance that we have here at our church is that our kids' church is not just let's go play video games. They have a full-on service.
Let's put on some videos.
Yeah, and my son is the one that I know for a few years I was like, these kids are coming out saying that they had an encounter, but my son's not saying anything. And then all of a sudden, one day he comes out like, Dad, I got baptized in the Holy Ghost fire. I was like, what? And he's praying in tongues, and then he kind of has questions. And then 2 weeks ago, he got baptized, water baptized.
Wow.
And he kept asking about it. And he wanted to get baptized back in January, but me and my wife were like, let's explain it to him, make sure that this is what he wants and not because his other friends are doing it.
Right.
And then come 2 weeks ago, he was like, I want to get baptized. I was like, oh, this is what this means. He's like, yeah, I know, but I want to get baptized. Sure enough, he got water baptized. And I feel like we were how can I put it? We made sure that we celebrated his baptism with him.
Yeah.
Like we marked it down on the calendar.
Right.
We made a Google Calendar event of it. So every year it pops up, this is the day you got baptized. This is the day they came out of the water and said that you are a child of God, that you're a new being here on this earth.
Right.
And, it's head on. I feel like you hit it right on the head on the nail when you were saying that if we teach the kids and they have that encounter, it's going to sustain them.
Yeah. And even if they go away, right?
Yeah.
Even if they do fall away. When my wife talks about that, she says, I rebelled. There was a few years that she says she rebelled, but she said that there was always a voice. She said that she always felt like, I can't do that.
Wow.
Even more than her other unsaved friends that fell away, and they had a little group of girls that got wild out. And I said, well, what sustained you? And she says, she didn't get pregnant. She wasn't promiscuous. She didn't go crazy in the streets. My wife's a little wild. She'll throw down. and she said, but she just rebelled. She didn't want to get saved, but she said that's what sustained her. That's what kept her, because her other friends got, pregnant at a very young age, 13, 15, and just got crazy. But she said that's what sustained her. And so the encounter, I think that's a huge thing that I think we skip. And I felt at a young age, that's what kept me. I really felt Jesus. And at times when I was a teen, I would get mad. My other friends, that I grew up with,
right,
they were in church and they started like rebelling, and I would know that this is wrong.
Wow.
And I'm not going to say like I was a church brat. I mean, I would have fun and I would do things to people's cars and all that little stuff like that, right? Just being a typical teen, right?
I don't think I ever did that.
But I wasn't like a bad kid in the sense of being bad. I mean, people at church call you bad, right? There's probably kids here that they call bad. Oh, this kid's bad. Why? Because, he wet toilet paper and threw it on the bathroom, ceiling. I
haven't heard of that yet. I hope I don't, man.
but I mean, it's like really like we're not bad kids. We're just church brats and we're just kids, right? And so, I would get mad because my other friends started doing more things, and partying and stuff. And I was like, nah, I don't want to go that route. And sometimes I was like, why do I get convicted every time? Like, don't do that. Like, these guys are having fun and they're okay with doing this stuff. But I would get like, I can't do it. And I made a choice, like 16, 17, like, yeah, they're going that way. I can't go that way. I have to stay over here. And it's not that I didn't battle with things or struggle when I was a teenager. Of course, like every teen, you battle with different things and you question things, but I think it's still the Holy Spirit was just kind of guiding me there.
When you say you were getting upset, were you getting upset at being convicted, or you were getting upset at your?
So I'm getting upset.
I want to do this. Let me do this.
Exactly.
I'm like, wait,
no, yeah. I mean, that's the truth, right? I mean, that's everybody. You want to get mad and go off on somebody like as an adult right now, right? And then the Holy Spirit tells you, hey, that's not cool.
Like, I have those moments when I have to tell someone,
chill out, and you're like, I want to cuss right now. I want to get pissed.
Can I throw this Coke bottle at him? Come on.
I want to fight this dude.
Can I just punch him once? Just once.
As a teen, I would be like, why can't I just rebel?
Let him turn the other cheek.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So I'd be like, so that's what I mean by that. Like, I wanted to, which I'm thankful I didn't, but I wanted to sin and not feel convicted. I didn't want to, I wanted to do things and it not be right. That the wrong would be right. Not, you know what I mean? Not the right thing to do,
So in my younger years, I had those moments where I did whatever I wanted to. But let's say like a month in or a week in or something, I'd get that little, you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. Right?
Are you still gonna do it? But then now you're like,
you feel
this
the
isn't
conviction.
fun. This isn't fun anymore.
Exactly. It's not fun. You're not able to sin and have fun and not let it bother your conscience or your inside, right?
Right.
You're getting convicted. I don't want to do that. It's not fun. It's because after I feel guilty or convicted or whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Wow. Well, now I know my teenage years were all jacked up because I didn't have that conviction.
Yeah. The devil already had you.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
He sure did, but Jesus said that I am his. So there it goes with that. So you mentioned your wife being saved and then she rebelled. How How long have you and your wife been married?
We've been married this year. We'll be married 29 years.
29. Wow.
Yeah, 29. September we'll be married 29 years. We started dating when we were 17, and we knew each other since we were 10.
Wait,
Oh.
what?
Yeah, because her family came to our church, so we'd be in Sunday school together. I didn't like her. She didn't like me.
Oh, good. We have
Okay.
similar stories.
Yeah,
There you go.
you know what I mean. I didn't. I wasn't really fond of her. I was just like, she kind of get on my nerves a little bit, and
Right.
She tells me, and I get on her nerves. The funny thing about this story is, right, when we were kids, she would call me David Orange Jello because my last name Arabella.
All right.
She would say David Orange Jello. Well, that's her last name now.
Orange
Sucker.
Jello.
Kind of cool, right? I got the last laugh here at the end. But we became friends when we were like teenagers. I mean, maybe like late 15, 16. And we started, talking, and I think she gave her life to the Lord, went back to the Lord when she was like 16, I would say 15, 16.
Right.
And then there was a church like prom. So I didn't have a date. She didn't have a date. We went as friends. I did try to make a move on her, but she wasn't having it. And then
Dang,
I just
rejected.
I did get rejected. And I got a little upset.
Rejected.
I'm not gonna lie. And then I think we didn't talk. And then they, you have your little prom pictures or whatever. So we got the
Right.
pictures, and then
Okay.
they're like, oh, here you go. Here's your half. Here's my half. And then we started talking again. And then, I started liking her. She was pretty. She was really pretty. She was cool. I liked her because I just felt like she was gonna have my back. She was tough. My wife she fought a lot of girls. So
Dang.
Hold my earrings. Hold on. Let's go.
yeah, she was that type of girl. So I was like,
Right.
I like her because I know she's gonna have my back. Like this is cool.
Yeah.
So we hooked up. We got married when I was 20 and she was 19. So
Wow.
yeah, that was a little rough. So being married young is tough. This is pre, this is pre pastor gets with you for like 6 months and you go through premarital and all that stuff. No. This is like you need to marry that girl before you fall into sin. And let's meet real quick.
Right.
One meeting, like making $5 an hour, I think, oh, you guys got to get married, and so not that I didn't love her. I just, nobody really prepared us for marriage.
So on that topic, what did you find the most difficult about being married so young?
Apart from money.
Yeah. I mean,
You-
the finance.
That's always.
I proposed to her making $5 an hour. And then
But this was 20 years ago.
No, yeah,
20
this
years
is
ago,
30
$5.
years. This is 30 years ago.
20
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
this is 30 years ago, right? So 94 we got married. So
So I was like making 15 now.
$5 was $5 was like
Mhm.
making 15 now, right? It was nothing, right? But I proposed to her making $5 an hour, and then probably like a month later, I got a job and I was making $13.75.
Ooh,
Which
big
back
baller.
then, that was
Living
good.
that life.
That was good, dude.
Yeah.
And then she had a little part-time job, so we were living in a nice little
Chilling.
apartment in
Yeah.
Downey, man. We were doing good at that time.
Sweet.
So, but I think the thing is just, you're super young and nobody really prepares you for just, hey, how to love your wife or how to love your husband. You're just kind of like, we're just kind of bouncing around and doing a little bit of ministry here and there. But nobody's really like getting a hold of us and saying, hey, how are you really doing? Like, and I struggled because, you're just like, well, how do I be a man or how do I be a husband? Or
Yep,
what is the husband
right.
supposed to do in this
Yep,
case?
Right.
What is the wife supposed to do? How do I react? I was prideful, I guys don't want help, so it was tough. I think that was the hardest thing is just trying to balance that and just really, not knowing how to be a husband. Nobody knows, right? It's like you have a kid, nobody knows how to be a father out the gate. There's no manual. There's all kinds of variables and everybody has different ones. There's some common variables, but there's a lot of different ones. So I think it was just hard to be married young. It was just, nobody was really helping us. We finally got like in a class, got a little bit of help. And then there was a couple that reached out to us. I think we got mad one day at church and we left.
At church?
Yeah, we weren't arguing, but I was like, let's just go. and we just left.
Oh, okay.
And a couple followed us home. So they followed us home, and I was like, and I knew the guy. He's kind of rowdy, right? And she knew them really well because her parents helped them in their marriage.
Okay.
So they followed us home, and I'm looking in the rear. I parked the car in front of the apartments, and I'm looking. I was like, why is this dude, Albert, Patty, following us? I get out the car, and he goes, "What's up, bro?" And he's rowdy, right? Rowdy. Albert's gangster.
Did you square up as soon as he said,
No, I didn't, because Albert was no.
I'm like, he's following me home. He's
Albert
like,
was
up,
like
bro?
the president of like his gang's clique, like one of the cliques off his gang. So I was kind of, he was like legit, right? So I'm like, and I knew him, but I didn't know him really good. So he's like, "What's up, bro?" And I'm like, "What's up, bro?" Like,
hey.
Who sent you? Your dad or what? So my wife starts crying to Patty, and they just became our friends. They just loved us, helped us. When we had problems, came to our house and just really helped me out. He passed away last year, and I got to speak at his funeral, and I just said, hey, he really helped me in those early years, and I was very grateful. And so when we hit 10 years married, I remember calling them and saying, hey, we just hit 10 years. And then it was 20 years, and I remember calling him, and then 25 years, and I called them and said, hey, I want to just thank you guys, for helping us, and he passed last year, but the great friends, and we just needed somebody to just say, it's okay. You're going to make mistakes. Like, everybody's been there, because I think in the church, we kind of, especially now with social media, everybody has a perfect marriage on social media or within the church. But in reality, there's a lot of problems in marriages, and it looks great on social media, and it looks great that everybody's living that great life. But it's very hard, to admit, like, hey, we need help. We can't do it. And so, and now with social media, it's even highlighted more because everybody thinks like, well, how come I'm not living like that? How come we're not going out to eat every day? Why aren't we going on vacation? Why are they always looking love? And so. It's a lot, man.
I don't think that happens on my social media. All I post is cats and how many cats Yvonne wants, and how many cats we just take care of outside.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, no, it is weird. Yeah,
it is weird.
I don't know if anybody's like, oh yeah, I want to be like them, the whole farm outside.
One Wednesday after service, there was a whole family of cats underneath one of the AC compressors.
It was a Sunday night.
It was a Sunday night.
It was a Sunday night.
You adopted all of them or what?
Yep, they sure did. They waited.
You're a cat guy?
Well, now I am.
Oh, so your wife was a cat lady?
No. So my wife is an animal lover.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Animal lover.
Okay.
So sees.
So you got to be an animal lover.
An animal that's hurt, rescues it, whatever. So with those 6 baby cats, we took them to a friend who runs her own grooming shop.
Right.
She helped adopt basically all of them except for one. I think she does, but. Yeah, that's what we do. That's how we ended up with our cat that we have now, our doggy that we have now. And again, I don't think anybody's on social media like, oh, I want to be like them. They're just like, oh, there they go again.
But you know what I'm saying, though,
yeah.
Right? Like everybody, and I probably would have had a hard time in those early years if there was social media, right?
It would think about it,
and so we just it's tough because you see a lot of young couples and they struggle, and I could tell. We go to church and I could see, like
you can just feel it, right? You walk in and you're like,
I know. I know there's couples that I see and we've seen in the past, and then it's like, hey, are you guys okay? Is everything cool? And it's hard. It's hard for the men to admit that. Even grown men, it's hard for them to admit that. For me, it was a long time not admitting like I need help. I don't know this. And so we see it. And it's tough because you want to help them, but they got to allow themselves to be helped. And some of those marriages are not together anymore.
Like, I always wondered that, like, you just approach the couple, like, we see you guys are jacked up, so come here,
Yeah, you can't, people have to open the door. I think, you can unlock the door for them. Like, hey, you guys need anything, we're here, if we love you guys, and
you guys want to go get some tacos,
but you're gonna have to they're gonna have to open up the door, because I was that guy, and it's hard to admit that you need help. It really is.
You can knock out the next one. Sorry, I know you're.
But me and my wife, we've been married. It's been a long road. I mean, we love each other.
Right.
Do anything for each other. We're at a good place. We have adult children now, so it's me and my wife we go to the movies like almost every Friday and go eat dinner and hang out, and we really enjoy each other, man. So, it's a good thing, but it took a lot of work. So if you see my Instagram and it looks all good, it is all good. But guess what? It took a lot of work to get there.
Hey, those Paris shots, man. You guys, I think it was for Christmas.
Rome.
Rome?
Went to Rome. Yeah.
Was it Christmas or New Year?
It's Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Yeah, we went to Rome.
I was like,
Thanksgiving.
yo, that's legit.
Yeah, man, that was a blast, dude. I mean, and even okay, so we talk about social media. You guys are like this, right? So I do jujitsu, and my boy Ralph, he was going to class, and I was in Rome. So the guys at the gym are like, "So with Dave, man, we saw he's in Rome." And then my boy Ralph's like, "Yeah, man, yeah, he went." And the guys are like, "Dang, bro, like Dave's balling like that or what? Like he that's got to be like $10,000 to go." Da 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 da. And so my boy Ralph laughs because he's like, "No, man, Dave's like a hustler. Like he'll find the best deal to go."
Right.
And it was like, I didn't pay for my kids. My kids are adults. You want to go? You pay for yourself. Okay. You know what I mean? I'll pay for the rides to and from the airport and parking, whatever, like that stuff. Yeah, that's fine. I got it. We have to pay for it anyways. But, I was like, he's telling them like, no, like Dave, that trip is like, it was like $1,000 each for me and my wife, hotel and flight.
What?
Yes. So it wasn't a lot.
Man, screw Google. I'm gonna look at you. I'm gonna hit you up next time I gotta go on a vacation.
Yeah, they're out there, man. So I was like, we went. It wasn't that much. We spent like maybe 1,000 out there. So I'm like, I saved. Right. We saved and we went for it. But in the age of Instagram and stuff, it looks like I'm balling, right? I mean, look good, right?
I mean, I didn't say you were balling, but I was like, wow, that's dope.
Throwing down Charlie Brown.
Yeah, it's like, but going back to the point, it can look deceiving, and somebody can look better than they really are, and that's the same thing for like a marriage, right? Inside is they're not doing good, but they're displaying an outside of we got it all together, we're fine, and I think too many people fall into that trap.
You know what? It can't give the illusion that one day to the next, you and your wife just decided to go to Rome and let's go. When, like you said, you saved, you hustled to look for the right deal. And you told your kids, if you want to go, you got to pay for yourself. So.
Yeah. So they went with us. I think that's like the third trip. I think they paid themselves. So man, so it's cool. I mean, it's fun and it's important, you got to spend some time with your wife. So I said, well, let's go. So, but yeah, we try to make it happen at least once a year, something.
That's cool. So did you guys have kids right away or did you wait some time?
Yeah, she got pregnant like in the 11th month of our first year of being married.
So you're trying to figure out how to be a husband. She's trying to figure out how to be a wife. And now you're going right into the parenthood.
Yes.
Wow.
So me and my wife now we do marriage coaching. Okay. We help marriage. We teach a marriage class called Marriage 100. And we talk about this like you have kids, you don't really know each other. So a lot of couples like they have kids within like 3-4 months. So you're just figuring each other out. Now you bring children into the picture. So now the busyness of the kids, practice and school, and even if they're babies, you're the baby, right. And so now it's all about the baby and you're forgetting the marriage. And so we've learned that there's couples that get so swamped for, 15 years of busyness with their kids that they forget about each other and they never really work on their marriage. So when the kids are gone, they have no relationship. They look at each other and go,
like, who are you?
Who are you? Who are you?
Right.
And that happened to me and my wife. We the kids were like, it was like 4 weeks in a row of the kids being gone. They live in the house, right. But they were gone. They do their own thing. with jobs, school.
Right.
And so they do this stuff, and we're sitting there, and it was like the first weekend. It's like, oh, Cam's working, Ash is out with friends, and we don't even see them the whole weekend, right? We go to church, they go to their church, and so we're like, okay. And then the following week, we're sitting there again, we're eating dinner, and we're watching something, Netflix or something, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool, it's quiet, and just me and you. Third week comes, and it's like, hey, this is different. It's like, and then the fourth week, I was like, hey, you know what? I really like this. And I'm glad we really know each other, because there's couples that get to that point and they're like, I don't really like you.
Dude, that happened a lot with the whole COVID shutdowns.
Yeah.
They were seeing the domestic violence was on the rise.
Yeah. Because you're around a spouse that guys work 12 hours, come home, eat dinner, take a shower, go to bed.
Yep.
They do it 5 days.
That was me.
They do it 5 days a week,
Yeah.
right? And so
I was doing 7.
Okay, 7 days a week, and then you see your wife for what, 1 hour out the day,
Yeah.
and so boom, like you get to a point where like, okay, and then all of a sudden, jobs get shut down or things get slow, and now you're like, oh, hey, who are you again?
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I think that it's a story we tell now. Like, it got to a point where 2-3 weeks in, I was just so annoyed. She was so annoyed. Saturday morning, she's trying to like trim our dog's hair, and then she accidentally like just clips him. I blow up, full volume, this and that. She goes at me, same thing. But it was I was used to traveling all over the country, everywhere, going this and that, blah blah blah. Yeah, hi, I love you. Oh, yeah, okay. And then wake up and do it all over again.
Right.
All of a sudden, now you're stuck with each other. You're looking at each other like, me caes mal. Like, and then she's looking at me like, you're not gonna pick up those socks, huh? And it was really weird.
Yeah, I think a lot of couples fell into that rut, and with kids and with ministry, you can get really swamped and really busy with life.
So that Marriage 100, is it like Physical 100, that show on Netflix? You guys go through a bunch of like, you put the marriages through a bunch of
no, I wish that
obstacles and all that other stuff.
That would be fun, dude. No, we call it Marriage 100 because we keep it 100.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, we tell people straight out, and it's the class is not for everybody. I mean, I tell them that. I mean, this class is not for everybody. We're going to keep it 100 because I think that if I don't keep it 100, then I'm doing you a disservice in your marriage.
It's true.
Even in premarital, coaching, we kind of go through that, and I tell the couple, hey man, listen, our job is to make sure we cover all the bases and like break you guys up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's up to the couple to implement them.
Right. And so, because when you go to premarital stuff, it's kind of tricky because the date's already set, right? The dress is already bought. This is kind of like just like a preliminary thing that, especially church people, that they think they just have to do. Oh yeah, we got premarital counseling with our pastor, but you already have the date set in August, so it's going to happen no matter what. Whether you, and so people go to these premarital counseling.
Hold on, you got me thinking. You got me really thinking.
No, listen, they go to these premarital coaching things, right? And they go in there, and they don't tell the whole truth because the date's coming, because the venue deposits due.
Wait, so you've encountered couples that hold back while going through
bro, all the time.
Wow.
I don't we've had couples that come to us and say everything's fine, and then 2 months later, he had a side chick, and she was texting like 3 dudes.
Dang.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, so you're wasting my time, right?
You're right.
So, it's like
I don't think we held back. I think we were in the first time we were walking in with Pastor Rob. I think we were just like, are we gonna yell at each other? How much of what just happened this week is gonna come out? Like, we didn't know. And slowly, like we said what we needed to say, but then we're also grabbing the lessons and of course writing down notes. And we're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, don't yell at him. Oh, okay.
You got to get to those parts. You got to get to the rough parts. And sometimes people don't want to get to the rough parts, right? They don't want to talk about those things. And especially in the church, we don't want to talk about a lot of things. Sex. They don't want to talk about sex. Nobody wants, sex. I'm like, God made this for us. Like, what's
There
the
you go.
problem? They don't want to talk about, kids. They don't want to talk about baggage, like
Ooh, come on.
past relationships or even past marriages. And I'm thinking like, they got a divorce and
Right.
let's say it was legit, right? And they,
Right.
and they get married and then they expect like, nothing's going to happen, or they bring kids into the marriage. And have you guys talked about that? Like, who's disciplining the kids? How are you going to,
Wow.
are
Yeah, I
they,
thought about
are
that.
you saying that they're going to call him, dad, and she's going to, and are your kids are going to call her mom? You're forcing them. That's not going to work. Have you
Right.
talked about that? What rules, what standards, what are your rules in your house? And now you're bringing into one household, or now you were married and bringing this baggage, and now he's bringing this baggage, and now you both have to share that baggage. People don't talk about that.
Yeah.
So we try to just bring up
That's good.
those issues and those things because it's never. I mean, we go over like some key stuff. We kind of start slow and we do like a little intro, and then we start getting into like some realistic changes, and then we get into relationally, like how to fight fair, because then people don't know how to fight. We're trying to fight like dudes. Because at work, it's like, shut up, punk.
Right.
Like,
You don't know me.
Yeah, and we're yelling, right? And then so we go and so we start fighting with our wife. Our voice gets louder. We get a little huffier, right? Our chest pops out. We're like, and so your wife's looking at you like, who is this dude? He's trying to punk me. Why is he treating me like a dude?
So the reason why I'm laughing is because I used to be guilty and I had to change it after.
I sensed that. You know what I mean? When I first walked in, I sensed that.
If we're keeping it 100,
I
we're
sensed
keeping
that you
it
were that
100.
guy.
I was that guy. No, so like the first 3 years of me and my wife's marriage, it was a multitude of things. And one thing that I used to do that I didn't realize was I would go for the jugular. Like my own wife, I would try to break her down, get her so mad that she would stop like bringing up that subject, whatever we were talking about, because I felt uncomfortable because she was bringing the truth to my, so I would be aware of it. And because I didn't know how to deal with it, I was like, nah, I'm going to shut it down right now. And this is how I would do it. And it was like, after we started getting counseling, I was like, I'm the destroying verbally and emotionally the one person that God has entrusted me with. And this is how I tell him, thank you for blessing me with such a great wife.
Right.
By putting her down and destroying her verbally. And I was like, wow, great job, Danny. Wow.
It's very tough when you don't have nobody teaching you that stuff, right? Or helping you or guiding you through that stuff. My wife brings up things sometimes and she's like, do you remember when you used to do that? And I was like, I did. And something I don't remember. And I'm like, wow. Like she brought up the other day, like, and we were just talking about things. And she's like, I remember one time you like yelled at me in front of your dad. And she's like, did he ever tell you anything? And I go, I yelled at you in front of my dad?
Right.
She was like, yeah, I do not remember that. And I was like, I was jacked up. I'm not saying that I wasn't telling that I didn't do it. I 100% believe I did it. But I was like, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't do that now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was just like you have to learn those things. It takes time, and I think a lot of younger couples want to just have this bliss right away, but that's not reality. It's two people, two separate families, right? There's things that are a lot alike, but the things that are a lot different. My wife, her father was a giver. That's how he showed her love, right? Mm-hmm. So when we got married, I was more like of, hey, I love you. Hey,
words of affirmation.
Yeah. So she wants, her way of her receiving love was gifts.
Right.
So I would come with like a gift and it was nothing, right? It's cheap, a DVD and maybe a flower and a card. Here you go.
Right.
And then it was like, not that she didn't love it or receive it, but she was like, well, that kind of like, that's it. Because that's how she received love. So trying to understand all that, I mean, you don't learn that overnight. You don't learn, how does your husband love you, or how does your wife love you? You don't, those things all take time.
Yeah.
And you need people that are in your life to kind of guide you through it. I tell men all the time, if you don't have that, find it. Go to your church, find an older couple that you admire, and ask that dude a million questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask him. You want to be like that guy? You think he has a great marriage? And let's find out if he does, right? And then you ask him a million things, right? That's what I tell guys they need to do. Just get in. There's no reason why you can't be a good husband. I tell the guys all the time, there's no reason. And it's never too late to be a good husband either. Because we'll get older cats, that come into the class. They've been married a long time.
Right.
I got a little upper hand now that I'm older, right? Gonna be 49. So I have a little bit of, there's guys I still go to and ask them questions about marriage and stuff, but I'm a little older now. So I got a little bit more play, but I tell guys all the time, there's no reason why you can't be a good husband. I tell this story. I'll tell you guys a story. I've said it on the podcast a few times. We started the Marriage 100 class like almost 5 years ago now. And I'm sitting there and I tell my wife, we're putting this class together. You know what this is going to do, right? It's going to bring up old stuff. We're probably going to fight. And we did.
Yeah.
And we're going to get mad, and I go, but we're going to have to go get through it. And it's going to be hurtful. Right. There's going to be some stuff that we're going to have to bring up that it's just, I don't want to talk about that. Like that was old me and I don't want to do that, or that was stupid,
right.
So I'm thinking we're talking one day and I ask her, we're married 24 years at this time. And I said, hey, how long have I been a good husband? And as a dude, you're thinking
23 years.
Yeah. Right. We always think we're better than we really are.
Right.
And matter of factly, within a half second of asking that question, she said 8 years.
You're like, what? This doesn't add up.
8 years? What are you talking about? 8 years. And after I was like, I laughed because I thought she was messing around. She goes, no, 8 years. 8 years, you've been an amazing husband. Like 8 years? Yeah. She's like, yeah. She's like, what about me? 4 years. 4 years you've been an amazing. And I said,
will you just be petty? Will you be petty?
I said it out of spite, right? Because I was mad. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah. She goes, you always tried. The first years were tough and you always tried and gradually got a little bit better. But she goes, but the last 8 years, you've been an amazing husband. And so I think she thought like, hey, you're doing great. And I was thinking like, well, that's only 30%, 33% of our marriage that I've been a great husband, right?
Right.
The other, what's the math? 67%. I
66, 67.
Yeah, I sucked, right? So like, great. So it bothered me for like 4 days. It really did. And I was just like, and I was being petty around the house, 8 years, right? And right under my breath, rocking around the house, 8 years, man. I've been freaking bringing the money in all the time, man. I've been working my butt off, man. What do you mean? Okay, I know the first few years were rough, but what the heck? I'm there for our kids. I'm being a baby.
Right.
Right. And then I thought about it and I said, man, you know what? If we plan on being married for the rest of our life, that's probably another 24 years.
All right.
And if I'm an amazing husband for another 24 years, that'll be 32 years. 32 out of 48 years. Now, where's the percentage at? It's got to be like up in the 70s now.
Right.
That's pretty good. Right. And I think people don't look at the long run in their marriage. Right. And so I tell guys, like, how long have you been married? 10 years. It sucks, dude. And they're like, yeah, it's been horrible. Okay. How long do you plan on being married to your wife? I guess forever. With that attitude. Right. Yeah. And I said, would you like to have a good marriage? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's going to start today. And so you can make a change, but you're going to have to do the work.
Yeah.
We tell that to people all the time. You're going to have to do the work. It's like anything, right? You're going to have to do the work. If you want to change, you want it to be better, both of you guys have to agree that we're going to do the work and it's going to get better.
Right.
But I tell them, it's never too late. You've been married 15 years and it sucked for 15 years. Okay. You plan on being married the rest of your life? Yeah. How much you think you got to live? I don't know, like 30, 40 years. Okay. So why don't you be a good husband for the next 30, 40 years and live a good life with your wife? Change. Simple.
So what is the mentality behind that where like you've been married for X amount of years, say 10 years, right?
Right.
Now I'm like, well, then I don't have any more to learn because I've already been married for 10 years. So what are you going to teach me?
Right.
Like, why is there that blockage where it's like, oh, I can't learn or reinvent myself or be a better husband because this is all I got.
For men, it's like anything. You know what I mean? It's the old. I mean, you guys have grandfathers, right? And dads, right?
Right.
Sometimes those older men get into this thing like, this is who I am. That's it. They're not going to change, right? And you've probably said that about them, right? I've said that. You know, like, it's probably not going to change unless the Lord really touches him. He's not going to change, right? Men get in the habit of saying, "Well, I can't change," because what does change require?
Work,
effort,
right? They don't want to do that. It's very hard to be a good husband. It's very hard to be a good wife. People don't want to work and make the effort. You know, before I got here today, you know what I mean? I'm like, I told my wife, what do I wear? This Ruka sweater or this Carhartt? And the way I said it, she goes, what do you mean? And I go, like, this or this. And I kind of got my voice a little bit loud, right? And I said, but this or this. And I go, what is the problem? And she goes, oh, you're going to talk to me like that? And I was like, so where does the work come in right there? I got to humble myself. I mean, I got to bring my tone down. And I had to say, sorry, love. I said that wrong. Should I wear this Ruka sweatshirt I have on right now, or should I put this Carhartt on? And she goes, I like the Ruka shirt. It's okay. I go, you know what? I'm sorry. It kind of snapped on me. That is a microcosm of work, because my flesh could easily say, well, whatever. I'll just wear whatever. You're not going to help me? Fine. And just leave. Now she's mad. I'm mad. And what am I going to go home to after this podcast? But yeah, now we have to figure it out again. Just do the work. Just make the effort. Hey, I messed up. And so men don't want to work. And sometimes wives don't want to work either. They don't want to do the hard work, because doing the hard work requires something. Effort requires a little bit of pain, some suffering, right? It's hard to talk about hard stuff. I don't like to hear how I was in my younger years as a husband. My wife says, I remember when you yelled at me in front of your dad. And I'm like, I did? My dad loved her. I'm like, I was like, I don't want to talk about this, man. I just feel bad. But it takes, you have to suffer. You have to work. You have to get past these things to get better. People don't want to do the work.
One can almost even translate that to their relationship with Jesus. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, in order to go deeper with him, in order to be used more, it's like, you have to put in the work. You have to put in that effort.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that just don't want to. And it's crazy because we see it every day.
And look at the rewards, right? It's like anything. It's in your career. It's in this podcast, right? It takes work to show up, and it takes work to edit it, right?
Right.
It takes effort. How is it going to get better? It's going to take more work to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
right? And you're like, well, what do? Well, we can sit on our laurels and use, these cameras and not get better cameras, or never get the ATEM, right? Or things that are going to be better. Right. But okay. But the thing is you got to be patient with that, right? Okay. We're going to get there. What do we need first? We need this first. Okay. In your marriage, what do I need to work on first? On my attitude. Are my replies back with you? Or we got to learn how to fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or we got to learn how to work this out. And so you take it step by step, and then you start figuring each other out. But then, like with your relation with Christ, seasons change.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Things change, and then and new challenges come. What's the new challenge? Oh, this podcast can blow up. Now we got to do what? Oh, we got to make this legit.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're earning money on YouTube, or we're earning money on Spotify. Now, there's a whole tax thing. Now we got to do that. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So even with your relationship with Christ, now Christ says, okay, you got to do a little bit more now. And you're like, oh, I can't just read one chapter and
I can't just chill out
and pray for 10 minutes and that's it. Oh, I have to have a good attitude when I go to church. Oh, the pastor wants to use me tomorrow. Like, what the heck? It changes. And marriage is the same way. The seasons change, right? You don't have kids anymore, or the kids are teenagers. They're doing their own thing. Or, you start getting older. That's where I'm at. Me and my wife are getting, the kids are pretty much doing their own thing. We don't even see them sometimes. And then it's me and her. And now it's like, I got to go to the doctor. For what? I got to get this checked or that checked. Or I don't know, I was feeling this today. And we laugh about it because we're like, what the heck? Getting old sucks. Like this is, or we got to go to bed by 9:30 now. And I'm like, 9:30. I go, do you remember I would go to bed at 11, wake up at 3:30 to go to work. And I was fine. So seasons are constantly changing. And you have to realize that things are going to change and you got to change with the circumstance. But one thing I would say that if you want to be a good husband, good wife, just remember this. This will simplify everything. Women want love, men want respect.
Yeah, I see that.
You guys are guys, you're married. We want respect like women want love. Think about that. We rather have our wives say, and our kids and our cats say, I respect you. That would mean more to us than if she said, I love you. But for her, it's all about love. She wants love. We want respect. And when I say respect, I'm not talking about street respect.
No.
I'm not talking, show me respect, fool. I'm not talking about just a respect, like a regard, like she has us up there. You know what I mean? I say that's the way it is. And that's all you got to remember. If you love your wife, just love her. And wives, if you respect your husbands, because that's what they want, you're going to be good. And if you still have a problem after that, husbands loving your wife, think of this. Your wife is God's daughter.
Yep.
Bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife's God's daughter. So when you were dating your wife and you would go visit her, you know, the house and you had to meet the family, you were on your best behavior.
I had to be.
You were telling the family like you're going to do all this stuff for, even if it was a lie, right? You were going to do all this for her, right?
Right.
But think about this, like she's not her dad's daughter. Ultimately, she's God's daughter.
Yeah.
How do I want to treat God's daughter?
Mm.
And if we think about the scripture that says that, you know, to treat your wife good until your prayers are not hindered. I think like, I don't want my prayers to be hindered. My connection to God is based on my relationship with my wife.
Come on.
Think about that.
Dude, that's dope.
If you think about that, my relationship, God doesn't say he's going to totally cut us off. But what he says in the word is that your prayers will be hindered. So to me, it's like I'm yelling over this hedge, right? And I'm telling, how come you're not hearing my prayer?
Right.
And he's saying, because I told you, you're not treating your wife good. How could I answer this prayer for you? How could I really, this connection is distorted. This connection is blocked. This connection is bad because you're not treating your wife good. So when guys say, my relationship with God's fine, it's just my wife's not good.
Then your relationship with God is not fine?
It can't be, right? How could that be? Love God, love people. Well, your wife's part of the people. So you're not following that commandment right off the bat. So love your wife. Treat her good. As the man of the house, you set the tone. The covering is Jesus over all of us. The man over the wife over the kids. That's it. Simple.
That's it. So simple, but yeah, we missed the mark so many times.
Because it takes work.
Yes.
Simple is going to the gym and working out. We know what we have to do, but it's going to the gym and actually doing it. Nobody has to give us a workout. You can get a workout and get an app and do all that stuff. In reality, you don't need that. You just need to do it. Same thing with marriage. You just need to do it.
Nike, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Nike was onto something when they came out with that slogan.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Pretty good. It was a pretty good little marketing campaign.
Right?
Yeah.
It did so.
Yeah, it was
and so I know that your dad was a pastor. I know your parents got.
He wasn't a pastor.
He wasn't?
He wasn't a pastor. Yeah, he wasn't a pastor. So
I was under the misconception that he was a pastor.
No. So my dad was a disciple maker.
Ooh.
That's what my dad was. He knew how to disciple men. My dad was lucky. He was discipled by some great guys coming up the ranks. My dad learned some hard lessons.
Right.
He never gave up. he persevered, and he created some great men of God. I mean, God really used my dad to create some great men of God. I should say that. There's guys that are out there that are pastoring churches that
Right.
they
Shouldn't be pastoring church.
no.
Oh.
They're out there. Well, there are those guys too,
Yeah.
but they're he helped men that and he had a passion for men to see them do good.
So
And
he was. I'm sorry to cut you off, but so he was pastoring without having the title of a pastor. Because right now, the way you're putting it, he was there for.
well, I'll say this: I think men in the church, you can make a greater impact by being a disciple maker than your actual pastor can. Believe it or not, if your pastor's not discipling men,
right,
and just being a pastor, I get it. It's busy, a lot of people. He's not going to be able to talk to everybody, right?
right,
We need some good men in the church, but you almost could be more effective as, let's say a marriage coach or a disciple maker or a Bible study leader than the actual pastor. The pastor sets the tone, of course, but it's the one-on-one, the fellowship after, the calls, the texts. The pastor can't do it for everybody.
you can't. Yeah.
But if you're a good leader and you can say, like my dad, I think I could probably name 4 guys, and some of them are pastors, 5 guys, that will tell you, yeah, he took me. And, there's the Pastor Mark right here in Whittier. He tells me, he goes, I disciple men the way your dad discipled me. And I was like, whoa. And I was thinking like, thank you for telling me that. 'Cause that makes me feel proud, man. That's awesome. He goes, yeah, he taught me this way. And that's the way I still do it for my guys today. He's been pastoring for like 25 years. And I'm like, dang, when I go to Vegas, Pastor Art's out there and same thing. He has young guys that, that he pastors and disciples, and they'll tell you like, oh, he talks about your dad all the time. Wow. This is the way your dad showed him. So I think you can be effective. So my dad was a disciple maker, Bible study. He had men's groups. He led a men's group for a long time called Iron Sharpeners.
Right.
And he invested a lot of time in men.
Oh, geez. Well, because I was going to ask, like, how was it to be a pastor's kid, but you weren't even a pastor's kid.
I don't know. I'm glad I wasn't. You know what I mean? Probably wouldn't be here if I was.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
That's where the hammer drops.
Yeah. I wasn't a pastor's kid. I mean, my dad was involved a lot in church, him and my mom, but I always felt like my dad, he went to all my games.
Right.
He went to my high school games. He went to a lot of even away games. He just showed up, he was, I think he showed a lot of perseverance in his life. He never quit. At the end, it was tough for him because he got sick. But he even through that, he persevered and still led things and still spoke. And so, I think he really showed me that you can be effective without being a pastor. Not that being a pastor is wrong, but I think sometimes you can get in a culture where you feel, and I think I felt like this for a long time, where you feel like you have to be a pastor to be relevant. I got to be Pastor Dave to be relevant. Right. You know what I mean? Or I got to be this or that. And I was glad because it really showed me, because early on when I was young, I thought hey, let me pastor. And my wife, her dad was a legit pastor, but it was rough. And she was like, I'll never be a pastor. My wife would tell me that. And I was like, well, I want to be a pastor.
Because she was a true PK then.
She was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was tough for them. Right. And so, I think it really, my dad's really showed me that you don't have to be a pastor to be effective in the church. And I think sometimes in the church, we can get caught up in that. Like, I got to be somebody, I don't know.
You got to be the face.
Yeah. I got to be the face. Like in order for me, I got to be the guy. I got to be the guy dropping knowledge on my Instagram and preaching. That's why you see a lot of young guys. It's kind of funny. I'm glad they're doing something and some of it's good.
Right.
But I think they're trying to like school, and I'm like, kid, chill. Like, just talk about what you're good at.
No,
I've always felt like, well, I've always been behind the scenes, and now with work and what I do, like it's easier for me to be behind the scenes. So even here at church,
Yeah.
I don't try to be the face or whatever. I just,
Yeah, but
I feel like I know I'm effective.
But if somebody came
behind
to you with audio video stuff, you would be like, hey, that's where I'm an expert.
that's where I shine.
Yeah, that's where I shine.
Someone bring me a microphone. Come on.
Yeah, but I think we all have that in us, right? Where we say like, well, that's where I'm good at. You know what I mean? But I think, and that's good. You don't have that sentiment. I'm not saying everybody has that, but I think there's a lot of guys where they feel like I got to be a faith in order to be a leader. I got to be the pastor, and maybe you will be a pastor one day, and maybe God's called you to preach, but in the meantime, what are you doing? Right? There's some levels to that, right? I got to work. I got to work my ways up. You know, what do I need to do? You know, and some guys will argue that and say, you know, well, if God's called me, then I'm just going to go straight to the top. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know if he really wants to work that way. You know, it's totally up to him, of course.
Right.
But I think the reality is this: I'm probably going to be helping Louis with some audio video. And what am I going to be doing? I'm going to be wrapping up chords.
That's right.
That's it.
Right. Oh. And that's where it starts.
That's where it starts.
You're not running the board. No way. Stay away from the board. Don't touch. You know what I mean? What are you doing?
Oh, good. He knows my concept. He knows my concept very well. Yeah, don't touch it.
Louis saying, don't touch the board. What do I do then, Louis? Just watch me. Yeah. Oh, why don't you go grab those chords and then wrap them up? And that's the reality of life.
Got to put in that work.
You get a job, and what do you start at the minimum wage, and you work your way up. But I think, you know, same thing in the church. That's the way it goes. And it's not that, I don't think it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. You just be great at where you're at right now.
Right.
Let me be a great Sunday school teacher. I want to teach a congregation. Learn to teach these kids first.
Come on.
Right. I want to teach a congregation. Learn to do this Bible study.
Yeah.
I want to, you know, pastor over men and women. Hey, why don't you learn to do this men's group first?
Come on. Yep.
And then there's levels to it, right? And God eventually like says, hey, he's learning. He's getting better. Like, it took me a long time to realize that. And through all those rough seasons of, man, I'm just over here doing nothing. And then when somebody calls me and say, can you come minister or can you come talk to our guys?
Right.
I'm like, yes, no problem. And I thought all that stuff, you know, all that, those trials or hardships or that suffering, and it wasn't easy, but now I get to go, okay, cool. And then now it's like another level, you know, like, oh, what about this? And what about that? So you can't skip steps.
Right.
Everything takes time.
Well, everything had this reason. Like you were saying, these young guys that were trying to go shoot straight to the top. If you really feel and know that that's what God has called you to do, why not go under somebody or be discipled by somebody that is either in that position or getting ready to be put in that position?
Right.
That way you start learning those steps, start learning those seasons. Because, yeah, man, like you see it a lot, like you said on social media, anybody can grab a phone and open up the Bible and this is what the Bible says, da, 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 da. But where's your knowledge coming from? Where's your wisdom? Where's your experience?
Right.
Where's the discipleship of somebody taking you under their wing and saying like, well, let's really break it down. This is what the Bible really says. And you're off by putting that out there on social media.
There is a thing in jiu-jitsu that I do jiu-jitsu, and there's a thing that they call it's lineage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's big in jiu-jitsu because you tell somebody, well, what belt are you? And they say, oh, I'm a purple belt. Okay, well, who do you train under?
Right.
Well, I train under Javier Vasquez. You train under Javier Vasquez? Yes. Who did Javier Vasquez train under? Well, Javier Vasquez had, you know, Carlos Gracie guys, and he had, you know, Helio Gracie guys. So there's a good mix of there. So the lineage, and then you kind of get, okay, I know what the style of this guy does. Then you get another guy and you go, well, who do you train under? What's your lineage? Well, I go to 10th Planet Redlands. You know, okay, I know 10th Planet. And I know that guy, Rick. Okay, Rick trained under who? Eddie Bravo. So I know their style. I know where they come from. Right. And I think in the church, it's kind of the same thing. Where we say, okay, well, and then we don't do it in a bad way, but we know like, well, what's your lineage? Who discipled you? My Uncle Woody used to ask us that at Plain. Who's discipling you, bro? He used to tell us, right? Who's discipling you, bro? Who you got somebody discipling you? Right. Which we're always being discipled by somebody. Yeah. Right? So I think it goes along the lines like you get underneath somebody, right? And I just shared this the other day. When we look at the word, we think about Paul, and people will bring up Paul like, well, Paul, God just called him. He started preaching. Okay. But there is parts where Paul goes to Peter,
Yeah.
right? And here's Peter, right? He had his rough patches, right? Peter was,
Right.
like he made a lot of mistakes, acted in haste all the time, right? So then he denies Jesus. Jesus
Cuts off an ear.
Yeah,
pulls out the blade. Yeah,
pulls out the blade, takes 2 steps on the water. I always want to know how many steps, but I just think like 1, 2, and then he fell in, right? Walks in the water for a minute, takes his eyes off Jesus, falls in the water, right? Just constantly, Jesus comes back, talks, he's one of the inner circle, right? Goes with Jesus. They go up to the mountain, they see Jesus, he transfixes and he's talking to Elijah, he's talking to Moses. Here Peter's like, hey, I'll make you guys 3 tabernacles. Like Jesus, like, calm down. They're not chilling here, bro. They're going back. You know what I mean? I'm going to one day. So he's making all these mistakes. He denies Jesus 3 times.
Right.
Jesus comes back, raises from the dead, sees them on the boat, right? He comes back. He restores Peter right there. Peter says some dumb things there too, right? He's like, well, what about John? You know what I mean? Again, Peter's acting like that, right? But Peter ends up being a great man of God, right? The second half of that, right? He goes on to live like 30 more years, they believe. Even in the Catholic Church, like Peter is like the guy, we went to Rome. We talked about Rome, St. Peter's Basilica. They say he's buried underneath the basilica right there. We saw his tomb, right? And I'm thinking, this guy, like, he totally transformed the second part of his life here,
Sure
right?
did.
Right. And so, but there was steps, there was lessons through all that. And then Jesus tells him, you're the rock that my church is going to be built upon. Like, he doesn't say you're the cornerstone. Jesus is the cornerstone, but he says, you're the rock that I'm going to build you on. And I was like, and he told him that early. Then he told him it again. And it was like, what the heck? And Peter transformed the light. And then Paul says he looks to Peter as a pillar of the church. So when we think about Paul, like, oh, Paul just got like, zapped on the road to Damascus. And then he was just,
he was the guy.
He was the guy, and he just went preaching everywhere. And he was the man, right? Second most famous guy in the Bible next to Jesus, I would say, right? But no, Paul gives Peter props. Like he says that he went and spent time with him, and he said that he was one of the pillars. So when I think about that, I was like, man, there's levels to this. There's things to this. Like Peter, over that first 30 years of his life, hey, he made some mistakes, but in that process, you can be called, because Peter was called.
Yeah.
First, one of the first disciples to be called. Every time Jesus mentions his disciples, like Peter's like the first name.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
He's like, he's in the inner circle. We know that with James and John, he's like right there. So Peter was the guy, but it was levels, and Jesus was constantly teaching him. And Jesus, like, I can just imagine, like, she's like, here you go again. Here we go again, Peter. You're going to deny me. No, I'm not, Lord. Even when Jesus tells him, hey, I'm going to die on a cross. That's it. They're going to crucify me.
Right.
Who, Lord? They're not. Get thee behind me, Satan. He's getting rebuked by Jesus. I mean, you can't get any worse than that. You get rebuked by your pastor, but to get rebuked by actual Jesus.
Come on.
And so there was levels to that. And then he ends up being this great guy. Like I said, within the Catholic Church, he's like this magnificent figure, right? I mean, the Christian church, I mean, he pushed it to the Gentiles. The Bible said that he went to the Gentiles first and said, no, you need this.
Yeah.
We want to preach this to you. So there's levels. And I think there's levels to guys need to remember there's levels.
I think that's where we forget sometimes. Like, we just want to jump into it and forget that we have to learn every step of the way, move it level by level, and take on this whole persona or responsibility that we have no clue on how to do it.
Yeah.
And that, Jesus called me. Yes, but he also called you through the process. And that's why we know that the seasons change, come and go, and we grow through the seasons. We even grow in the transitional season part of the seasons, right? Because people are like, oh, I'm in this season, that season, but don't forget how it looked like when you transition from one season to the next. Because in that transition part, or in the transition period, it can get a little awkward because you're like, well, I know I got called, but no longer in this season, going into this season, but I don't know how that's going to look like. But you go with it. So for you, when did the season start where you started the street gospel? the podcast that we know and come to know and love now.
Oh, you love it.
I love it.
What about you, Louis?
I find it mind blowing of like the
Thank
people
you.
you get, man.
Thank you, man.
Like to name off, of course, we said Pastor Rob. You had
Pastor Rob.
your brother-in-law,
Art.
Peña.
I mean, that was kind of like I needed somebody really bad. He owed me a favor, so I just
Well, it was like episode 3, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was early, so I was like,
Then-
you know what? I just got to keep this ball rolling.
Then
Can you
you've also had like
I don't even know if he was saved at that time, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. You know what I mean? I think God's been chipping away.
Let's go.
It's been a process.
but then you also had guys like Wub from POD.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that was good.
Then
He was cool.
Pastor Jay Halsep.
right,
Pastor
and then
Jay.
infamous Mike Servin.
Yeah.
I had
Jesus
Mike,
Christ!
Yeah, I had Mike Servin, man. That was hey, you know what? Mike's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's very sincere and he's legit.
Yeah. He's,
Yeah,
he's eccentric, and people don't. I mean, they don't know how to like take it in. But he's like, I looked into his testimony where he was like, the reason why I'm kneeling Jesus Christ all the time is to combat whatever is going on in my mind.
That's what he said on the podcast, dude. I was like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense to me, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm like, I'm doing that in my mind. You know what I mean? Let's be honest.
Right.
A thought comes in my mind, something comes up, and I'm like, puke that in Jesus' name. Like, no, stop.
Right.
That's not right. Right. But he just is verbal with it. Jesus
Super.
Christ. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know how many times he says that a day. Maybe something's bad happening like 10 times, 30 times a day. Like, dude, what's going on? in your mind?
I heard another interview where he was talking about he got jumped,
Mhm.
and then he felt like he's like I could have squared up and this and that, but he's like I felt God telling me don't.
Yeah.
And then he's like he got jumped, and then when they were like someone like came and like
Yeah, they broke it
separated,
up.
and then he immediately got up and was like, "Hey, I love you guys, like Jesus Christ, I'm praying for you." And then one of
Yeah.
them was like, "Well, then pray for us." Like after even that situation, and you're like,
Yeah.
Bro, I got a lot of flack for that podcast.
What?
Why?
You know, I'm gonna tell you like this. Those clips went viral. If you go look how many, there's one on there that I think was like 260,000
Whoa.
of him talking, and there's 1 million comments on that thing, and not 1 million, but there's a lot, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, this guy, this guy, that. Oh, this guy's a joke, or this guy, is living off the gospel." And there was a time when I replied back because I was like, "No, like this guy, he lives a very humble life. This guy's legit."
Yeah.
And then when I go listen to the whole podcast, not just this clip, and you're gonna see, because a lot of people are like, I thought he was kind of like just like a joke, like just like
I didn't understand it because the first time I saw
Yeah.
him pop up was at
Chris Brown.
No,
Chris
that-
Brown reposted that video of him pop locking with the red sweater on and the Bible and everything. Is that what you're talking about?
no.
you
He was
that?
at a
Okay.
church.
That's the first time I saw
Yeah,
him.
that's the first time I
was
seen him too.
When and I just started discipling with Pastor Rob. This is 2019, and I was like, Pastor Rob, look at this, and he was like, "What's wrong with it?" I'm like, "He's pop locking," and he's like, "But what if that's how God's using him? Like, you don't know what his walk with Christ is." So I was like, "But he's like, it doesn't all look the same."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, I remember when I first saw him. He was so the connection I had towards him was the pastor's wife at the church I was going to. That was their parent. That was her parents' church where I first saw him
Okay.
like pop up or whatever up in like NorCal.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and then looking in through interviews and podcasts, I'm like,
Right.
I see who he is.
Yeah.
And because if you just see a clip, you just see part of the picture.
Right.
You don't see the full canvas.
And it went, it kept going. It
Uh-huh.
was like 3 months, and I would get like hundreds of likes a day
wow."
on that video. So I was just letting it roll. But I would go, and sometimes people would say, "This is a joke, this is that," and I would answer back, and I'd be like, "Listen to the podcast. Like this guy lives a very humble life. This guy's legit." And there was one guy in particular, like went really hard, and we were going back and forth, and then I messaged him.
Like
And
in the comments, you guys were
Yeah.
going to make it? Wow.
So I messaged the guy, And then I followed him on my personal, and he followed back, and he apologized. And I said, "Hey," he goes, I thought this was a joke. I thought he was a joke." And I said, "Nah, this guy is legit, dude.
Right.
Like, listen." Like, he's like, I'm not religious. I know about God, but I'm not. And I said, "Okay, that's cool, man." I go, "But he's legit, bro. I'm telling you." And me and that guy ended up becoming friends. And so,
That's
but there
cool.
was people that were just really hard on Mike. And I was just thinking, like, why can't he be used like this? What is the problem? What is so bad? Realistically, what is so bad about what he's doing? He walks around, he screams Jesus' name, he preaches to everybody.
Yeah.
He prays for all kinds of people.
He baptizes people.
He baptizes people.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking in my head, like, what's so wrong about that?
A few years ago when I came across him and started following him because, thank God Pastor Rob corrected me real quick. So I'm like, let me look into this guy.
Yeah.
Let me see his walk.
Educated.
I got educated real quick.
But it's hard to get a little,
Right.
a little.
Especially because, again, depending what background you yourself
Yes.
are from, you're like, oh no, that's not Christ like.
Because when I first seen him, I go, "Oh, I've seen guys like this in church all the time." You know what I mean? Like, I can name like 10 different dudes. And I would always
Hype the name, but
I would always mock them, not mock them, but like I would like what's the right word here? I would as a kid, I would see them in church, and then I would do them. Like,
you impersonate.
I would impersonate them. That's the right word. So I would impersonate people from church, and we would laugh because it was like, oh, we've seen guys like this,
Right.
And they become saved, and they're cool. But I think it's very easy to be like really judgmental on that.
Yeah, because you just see him as eccentric, and then you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh, he's making money off the church. And I'm just like, bro, the guy lives a really humble life. You follow his Instagram, you can tell.
Which I do. And he did this whole road trip, and he would stop by because he was had different speaking engagements. And he would pray for people on the street. And oh, do you want to get baptized? Take them back to either the hotel pool or even the hotel room bathtub and baptize people in water.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's
like,
wild.
this guy is like, he's legit.
Like I had a really good sense of him, and I felt like, I think sometimes as believers we get too caught up in the discernment thing. We got to be discerning, bro. And sometimes that's a good thing.
Mhm.
It is a good thing, but sometimes people don't have the spirit of discernment, and they want to discern.
It's a cop out.
Yes, it is a cop out. It's like this is more than discerning. You're judging. Spirit of discernment is coming from a good place. Spirit of discernment is saying, I'm giving money to this church. The church doesn't have electricity, but the pastor's driving a Mercedes. That's a good spirit of discernment saying, yeah, that's not a good, that's probably not, your money's probably not being used right. I have a spirit of discernment. This pastor kind of treats his wife bad. Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't go to that church, or maybe we shouldn't ask them for marriage advice. Right. And there's some stuff that goes a little bit beyond that.
Right.
I get it. But sometimes we get so caught up in the spirit of discernment that we miss out on a guy like Mike. And when he came, like, that was like the first interview where he wasn't too hyped, and I got to ask him some really serious questions.
Right.
And then people were like, I thought this guy was a joke, but I watched the podcast and he was great.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, even after he prayed for my kids, hey, Mike, can you pray for the kids? Just lift them up right now. And he prayed for them. And it was legit prayer, man. It wasn't like, like religious, or it wasn't like, I really felt like, man, this is from the heart. This is Holy Ghost right here. So yeah, man, I think God's going to use people the way he feels.
Right.
And he's going to take the foolish things of this world that we think's foolish, right?
To find the why.
Yes. And so I'm like, this is what the word says. Why are you thinking this is dumb?
Yeah.
God said he was going to do this, man. And it's just like, I don't get it. Like, this is good, So yeah.
So, I mean, aside from Mike, what are some of the guests that you've had that you feel stand out, or certain memories that stand out?
Yeah, we've had on people that, that when guests come to the podcast, I always ask them, is there something you don't want to talk about?
All right.
And I'm not a Roy Firestone type of guy. Do you remember what's that movie with Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding?
Not if you
Jerry Maguire.
yeah.
Okay, remember the guy that makes Cuba Gooding's character cry? He's interviewing Cuba Gooding, and it's Roy Firestone. He's a legit sports reporter, interviewer, whatever you want to call him.
Right.
And then Cuba makes the thing like he tells him, "Hey Roy, you're not going to make me cry. You're not going to make me cry." And then Roy keeps talking, and then Cuba's crying. You know what I mean? I'm not Roy Firestone. I'm not gonna I'm not trying to pull it out of you. I'm just not that guy. Like I can ask you these questions. Like I listen to podcasts and I'm like, yeah, I probably wouldn't go there, but that's their podcast.
You're not CoffeeZilla.
Like, yeah, like, ooh,
CoffeeZilla. He's the one that took out the guy from FTX, kind of like exposed him. And Logan Paul and a couple other people.
It's just like, it's like a setup, right? They come in and then you're like, oh no, there's podcasts out there and it's like, oh, so you got shot. Have you ever killed anybody yourself? It's like, not my podcast. Right. But
that's what you avoided asking our opinion on that one.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't.
There's no statute of limitations on murder.
So they come in and I ask them that. And I just say, and usually it's good. But then we have guests that come in and they say things. And then after it causes a little bit of drama, in their family.
Right.
Or I've had, I've had on friends and then I've heard back like they like their dads or their uncles or whoever are like, well, why does Dave do that? Why is he asking them these questions? And I'm like, I don't ask them like nothing crazy. I don't put a gun to their head and tell them to come. I give them a platform so they can speak this stuff out. You know what I mean? And if they say it, they say it. And I don't try to, pull out more than I should, you know what I mean? Or expose stupid stuff like, oh, you cheated on your wife. Was the other girl this? Or, you know what I mean? Like, why did you cheat on your wife? Or it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't want to go there. But there's been times when people have gotten upset with me or, I think one time somebody threatened to sue one of the guests because they didn't even expose them, but they assumed that she was talking about him.
What?
Yeah, it was just weird. So there's people that were like, got mad, parents like, their kids came on the show and they were kind of like, like, oh, is he going to ask them crazy stuff? There's, I had a guy on and I seen his brother and I said, hey, did you see the podcast with your bro? And he's like, yeah, he was kind of like exaggerating and it wasn't, that wasn't true. I wasn't. And I went back to the guy and I go, hey, I saw your brother the other day and I asked him and he said that you were exaggerating. He said, what do I have to exaggerate about, man? That's my testimony.
That's what I was going to say right now. Like, you can't say, oh, he was exaggerating. That was his point of view. That's how he saw things.
It gets weird, dude. And so I was really, I had people say that I was exploiting them and and it was just like, I was like, really? And then I got a little bit wigged out by it. I was like, am I? Is this exploiting people's stories? Is it their testimonies? And I was like, no, these people have told some of these stories in church on their own, or they've told this story. I'm not saying, I might, direct the question a different way or, or go a little bit deeper on one end or somewhere else they've never been, but I don't try to like exploit it and make it like this drama thing or for likes or for, views or subscriptions, whatever you want to call it. But it gets weird sometimes. It does. And it's unfortunate, but I've learned like I'm the host.
Right.
You're the guest. We're going to take it where you want to go.
It's true.
And that's it. If you don't want to take it there, then we won't go there. And so it's up to them. And so it gets, sometimes it gets weird.
So we haven't had any situations where it gets weird. We have had two guests that situations arose either because of the podcast. Well, mostly because of the podcast. Not that they said anything offensive or anything like that, but situations arose. But what we found uplifting both us to them and them to us was, well, okay, I hope now these clips go viral. And you're like, oh, That's a crazy attitude to take. Great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, good. Like, I feel like whatever we did here as a collective is uplifting to them and uplifting to us,
Right.
and to whoever gets to hear this. Like, we've also have had comments of some of our guests. Literally, I think you showed it to you, texted to me, right? You
Yeah.
screenshot said, "Dude, I am going through the exact same situation."
Right. And there's more of those than the other ones, right? I mean, there's more positive in this podcast.
To me,
me too. There's more positive in the podcast than there are negative.
And to me, I'm like, even if this guest went through a small situation because of our episode, that person, that comment with that comment, it could have been all of that could have been just for that person,
right?
And that's amazing.
Yeah, it gets weird. It does get weird because I had other guests and they didn't even repost the podcast. They said they didn't like it, you know. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was great, you know. I was like, everybody that I talked to said they loved it. And they were like, nah, they just didn't like the way they came off. And so I'm like, well, you know, look at these people. They said that, you know, that this really touched their heart. They said they could identify with you,
right?
And that's the biggest thing is identification. Who do you identify with? And then when you hear somebody like, I live that life too, or somebody went through that, or I went through that, it's kind of strange.
Yeah, I mean, to that note, I've actually deleted some of the negative comments. I'm like,
leave them.
That's what Pastor Rob said. He's like, why are you erasing them? I'm like, because this is dumb. Like, why are you attacking this guy?
There's some that were profanity.
Well,
like on Mike Servant's one, there was some stuff that I was like, this is just you're just going in on Mike. You know what I mean? This is personal. So, but most of the time I leave them.
And I was just like, dude, like, I take it personal because I'm like, I'm bringing these people on, ask them to be vulnerable, open,
right,
honest, and transparent. And you want to dig into them and just like, oh, what is it to be scared of? This is whack. Like, you know, they're lying. I'm like, where do you get off by saying that they're lying? This is their testimony. This is what they went through. But you say they're lying? How? Why? This is crazy. But like you said, it gets weird. People are weird out there on social media.
That's the problem. You can say anything you want on social media, right? I had Vanessa Brisenio on. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and you know she's a pastor's wife.
Right.
So, you know, I said as a pastor, and I probably said like 2 times, I don't call the pastor's wife pastor. I usually call them sister. I call the pastor.
Right.
That's just me.
Right.
I just always been like that. But I called her pastor because I was identifying who she was. She was like, you know, I was going to say you and your husband pastors and you're his wife. So, no, I'm going to say, so you're a pastor. How do you deal with, you know, right? That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So I had a guy comment on the YouTube.
Oh Lord!
And it was like, yeah, you know, he's gonna say, I agreed pretty much with everything you had to say in this podcast and what she had to say. But I thought when you called her pastor, that's reserved for the man and and he went in, and I was like, dude, like out of that whole podcast, I'm sad to say that's the only thing you took away from this. I go, for the most part, I don't really call pastors' wives pastors. I always call them sister. And I go, and if I do call them pastor or sister, it's always out of respect. Right. Any other woman in the church, I just call them by their first name.
Yep.
But if I have a regard for them, or they're I'm not saying like a status, but I'm saying, you know, maybe an older sister in the Lord or a leader, I always say, hey, sister so-and-so, sister so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like, so dude, like, well, you're tripping off. It was a 2-hour podcast, and that's what you're mad because I called her pastor twice. And it was in reference to her and her husband pastoring a church, bro.
Oh man, that's crazy.
See, and for those watching and listening, I don't know about that part of our programming because I'm more of I'm the editor. I do all the other stuff like the audio. Danny's the one in charge of all that stuff.
Awesome. You know, so Danny gets the drama.
Yeah, we split the responsibilities. And, you know, every once in a while, he's telling me like this or that, or, you know, we have to agree on like graphics or this and that. That one, like the whole comments, like, I know they're going to come, but I guess I never get to see them.
No, it's like delete. But then Pastor, the last one was off of Anthony's episode. Pastor Rob was like, "Well, why are you deleting it?" I'm like, "Because it's dumb." He's like, "Well, let them be fools on your show. Like you go viral that way." I was like, "Oh, you're right."
Yeah.
Like,
I
let them
just
be who they are.
Yeah, it's just you're not gonna please everybody, and especially in the internet world. You know, you can do the best thing for somebody. Dude. You can give food to people in Africa, and somebody will say, "Well, how come you gave that food? It's unhealthy for them."
Or
you know what I mean? It's always something.
Or why are you giving food to people in Africa?
I know we got people here
There's
locally.
people in Mexico, and are you helping people? And you know, it was like the abortion thing, right?
Right.
I don't want to get political. I know
Do it. I don't care.
But
Let's go.
But like the abortion thing, right? It was so funny because you know the woke people in church.
Oh, let's go. But that's an oxymoron.
You know what they're
though. That's an oxymoron. You cannot be woke and be
no. Okay, and it's so funny, right? Because I'm like the woke people in church are funny because it's like. They're like, yeah, we should love everybody. You should, Black lives matter, the brown lives matter, Asians lives matter. And I was like, yeah, they do. But all lives matter,
Right.
and
all souls matter.
And what were you doing prior to that? Jesus says to love him and love people.
Right.
So we were already supposed to be doing that. What were you doing before all this wokeness? Like you should have been doing it already.
Right.
But anyways, going back to the abortion thing. So, it got shut down,
Right.
Roe versus Wade, right? And so you had the woke Christians in the church saying, oh, all you Christians that are happy, because this got shut down. So what does that mean? Are you gonna help with these single mothers?
Oh, yeah.
Are these people that have been raped or all this? Were you gonna help them with after? And I was like, what a dumb argument. You know what I mean? Because this is the thing. You're arguing Roe versus Wade got stopped. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We've been praying for that for 50 years. Now you're so woke. You got to find something wrong with this so you can be cool within the church, right? Like you think you're cool.
The status.
Right? The status, right? I want to be the wokest Christian at church. Oh, hey, church, what are you going to do with these kids now? Are you going to take care of them? I got so mad because the dude did that, right? And I was like, I don't put this little comment up on my page. You know what I mean? Maybe it is a little bit in flesh, but I think somebody needs to say this. And so I think my pastor friends always like me because they're like, I can't say that, but I'm glad you did. Right? All my pastor friends tell me that all the time, dude. Right. And they're like, yeah, I saw your post, but I didn't like it because I can't. And I was like, I got you.
Right.
So then after I said, as believers, we believe in human life in the mother's womb, right?
Right.
We believe in human life after it is born, which they were arguing. Are we going to help that? And more importantly, we believe in human life after they're dead in eternity.
Right.
All three, we're supposed to do that already. So why are you making this an argument? What are you going to do about the single mother? Well, we've always done. Love her. Try to help her with her kids.
Right.
Be nice to her kids. Encourage her. If they need something, what were we doing prior to Roe versus Wade? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing that. We were supposed to be doing that anyway. So you can never be woke enough. So woke within the church, like you just said.
It's an oxymoron, dude.
Yes, it doesn't make sense because woke before it became woke was we should have been doing it.
Yeah.
Loving people and taking care of people and introducing them to Christ. It's very hard for me, man, because I'm a little political. You probably heard on the podcast sometimes I get a little political, but I have a battle, and I realize this. I toned it down because I don't want my voice for politics to be louder than my voice for Jesus.
That's good.
And I just don't want that. It can't be that. It can't be that. I was very outspoken on the pandemic stuff. I was very outspoken on.
Yeah, I love those episodes
on politics, and I still will be. I'm very outspoken on the Second Amendment and all that stuff. Right? I'm very out there, and I'll tell people the way it is, and I'm never afraid to back down. I'm not like I love Jack Hibbs, but he's very political and he's very biblical too. But he'll preach powerfully, but then he's very political too, right? Political. I'm not that extreme. I could be.
Yeah.
But I just feel like my voice will be turned off automatically. And so what I'm trying to do is reach people for Jesus ultimately, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't care, be great if you voted the right way, whatever that is, right? Well, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but let's be sensible here. We're in a bad place right now.
Yeah.
We're in a horrible place right now.
Yes, we are.
So I battle with that. And then there's times when I have to say, no, you know what? I might turn somebody off with that comment. You know what I mean? But there's certain things where I'm like, no, the whole, men competing as women in sports. No, not fair. It's a bad idea. Drag shows with kids, bad idea.
Dude, like when I was at last time in the world, like all these drag shows used to be held at bars and clubs.
Yeah.
Right. So you had to be 21 and over to attend them.
Right.
Now they're bringing that to like libraries, kids events. I'm
We recently had someone on the worship team tell us like, like working at a nonprofit, like, oh yeah, there's going to be a drag show. And there's nothing about that on the permission slips.
Right.
I started thinking, I'm like, so the parents don't even have a choice because they don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I mean, and what type of grown man, even if he dresses like a woman, wants to do that in front of a kid?
Pedophile.
Yeah. Weirdo.
I said it. Not minor attracted people. A pedophile.
Yeah. It's weird.
So out.
It's weird. And it's out there. It's like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? I do get it. It's evil.
It is.
Right? It's satanic. It's a spirit. And it's spreading. And that's what I tell. There's a lot of people that are sensible family people that are not saved.
Yeah.
But they're good families, right? You can be a good father, you can be a good husband and not be saved.
Right.
And I'm looking at them and I'm like, look at it's blatant now. It's out there. They are after your children. They want to teach your children their values, not your values, their values. Oh. They want to expose your children to all this sexual pornography, whatever, all this stuff.
It is pornography.
Yeah. They want to expose this. They want to control your kids and you don't have no power over your children. If they want to be a girl at school, then we're not going to tell the parents that they're being a little girl at school when they're really a boy. But when they go home, we don't have no obligation to do that, but we can call them Maria instead of Mario. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, they're after your children with the vaccines, with all this stuff, and they're trying to state raise your children. And so I'm like, you guys don't see that? Like this is bad. Whether you're a believer or not, it's not good.
I've actually spoken to a few people in the past, a few neighbors, and we're like, they've honestly, openly have said we see it, but because of our beliefs and our political stance, we still roll with it. I'm like, really?
Wow.
You're gonna allow this evil to happen because
dear Lord.
Yeah. And I was like, this is crazy. This is insane. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, where do you stand up? Well, that's how it is. I'm like, no.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem now. Like, okay, if we look back to 3 years ago, people that voted for Biden.
Right.
Okay. So you voted for Biden and you're thinking like, I just want peace. I want things, it's too much with Trump. It's too crazy. And then you voted for Biden. Now, I think people think like, I voted for him, so now I got to stick with him the whole time through. And it's like, no, that was a bad choice. Like, you have to admit that now. Right. Like, there's so many things that
they don't let me.
They don't. Gas is sky high. Eggs are $7. Trains are crashing everywhere. You're crazy, and Biden's crazy, and he says crazy things all the time. He's not all there. Like, can we admit that it's not a good idea, that things didn't go the way you thought they were going to go? They won't admit it because they're like, ride or die. If gas goes to $20, and that's just the way. Yeah. And it's like, no, like that's dumb.
Yeah.
Like you gotta say, I made a mistake. I respect people that say that was a mistake.
No, like that was dumb. That was stupid.
I shouldn't have done it that way. I shouldn't have voted that way. That was
my bad.
I thought it was going to be a good thing and it was bad. And I'm not saying that Trump's the answer or nothing like that. I don't know. But what I am saying, well, I do know it was the answer. we all know that was the answer. I mean, it was a bad move. And I think the crazy thing is we knew it right away. Within the first year, you're like, yeah, this is not going good.
Something else is going wrong.
Right.
Everything bad is happening. And so, yeah, but now nobody's going to listen to this podcast because they started talking about politics when I want to talk about Jesus.
No,
I think, I mean, I didn't even get invited to like family weddings because, of COVID and politics at that time. It was just really, I had I have a really good friend, and hopefully we could get back on the same page here, but he's not saved. He was saved at one time, and then we were like good friends through high school. He was in my wedding and everything, and we lost contact because he moved, and then before the social media and stuff, and I went looking for him one day, and I just happened to pass by the last place I saw him. I seen him. He was visiting his family.
That's crazy.
Lived there. Yeah, he was sitting out in the driveway. We reconnected, and I tell this story because I love the guy, and I witnessed him, and I shared the love of Jesus to him, and I thought I was being a good representation. And one day he asked me about my politics, and and I tried to be cool about it. And I said, Rob, the bottom line is just Jesus, man. That's it. There's some things that I do. There's some values that align a certain way. And he's like, oh, no, I already know who you're voting for. And he went in. And I was like, Rob, we're good friends, man. You're in my wedding. I love you, bro. You're like my brother. No, kept going. And then we stopped. And then I said, hey, man, let's just leave it at that. 2 weeks later, called me again. Started going in on me again. And it was like, and the hard part now is I haven't talked to him for a while. It's to not call him and say, I told you.
That's not Christ-like.
Things are all bad. You know the mask that you're a pussy for? It didn't work. Here's the study. You know that they said recently that it did come from Wuhan lab. You know what I mean? It's like all these things that you were so adamant and wanted to break up our friendship. Like, because I went to the point of, Rob, let's just agree to disagree, bro. We're still brothers.
Right.
I love you, man. Like, let's talk about hoop. Basketball. Let's talk about our families. Let's talk about let's go shooting. Let's talk about that stuff. No, he wanted to go in, and I'm just like, dude. So it was rough.
Yeah.
But I have to make it about Jesus. Does those values and beliefs sometimes line up with certain political beliefs? They do, and that's just the way it goes. Like we don't believe in drag shows for kids. Technically, I don't believe in drag shows for anybody.
Right.
I mean, but if you want to go over there with your buddies and do the drag show, then do it. But leave the kids out of it.
Like recently, me and my wife, we got invited to my cousin's wedding, and he's getting married to a man in April, and we, cordially declined. We love the fact we always every time we meet up with them every so often, we talk to him and his fiance, whatever. We love on them. But it's like, we're not going to show up to your wedding because we can't.
We don't agree.
Yeah, we don't agree and can't support that.
Okay, so I have a big thing about that.
Yeah.
Like, you can love and not be accepting of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's change. They tell you that I'm not just saying, homosexuals or anything like that, but anybody that in sin, right? They say, in order to love me, you have to accept everything that I do. That's a lie.
Yeah, that's not true.
That's not true. Because then vice versa. Do you accept all my beliefs? And do you love me? Well, I don't like your Christian beliefs. Okay, so you don't love me. No, you can love me and not accept my Christian beliefs.
Right.
Okay. I can love you and not accept your lifestyle. Just because I love you doesn't mean I have to accept everything, right? And that goes for everything. I loved my uncles. I loved them, but one was an alcoholic and one was a drug addict. I didn't love that about them, and I wasn't going to be accepting of that. Neither was my dad. You want to stay here? No drugs. When I leave to work, you're going to have to leave too. He loved his brothers with all his heart. He would do anything for his brothers, but he wasn't going to agree with their lifestyle.
That's right.
And I think sometimes people think that in order to love, we got to be accepting of everything that somebody does, and that's not true.
It's not true. And it was crazy because we sat down and we talked to my mom, and my mom's like, well, I don't know, because it's my godmother. So she was like, oh, your Nina want to be there to support your Nina. I was like, but like, as how can I say, as a an accomplice, you're also supporting what they're doing. She's like, but I'm there for your Nina. I'm like, oh, all right. So I just dropped it on my mom. I love my mom. She's a believer. She's gonna do what she's gonna do. But apparently, one of my other family members had approached my grandmother, because my grandmother, real quick, she was like, nope. And like, well, don't you love your grandson? I love him. I pray for him, but I don't agree with what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's right, Grandma.
Firme.
Órale.
Yeah.
So now going into this conversation, and now kind of pairing it with your podcast, you don't always have Christians on your show. How does that come about? How do you go about that?
Right.
With inviting them on your show, with the conversations you've had, because some have been rough. And
Well,
like, how do you?
because of cursing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Like, how do you deal with that? Has there been any fruits from those episodes with those guests?
So I think, okay. So to answer the first thing, how does that come about? If I see somebody that I think has a good message or a good story, I'll have them on, because I believe that I believe we can learn from them.
Right.
I believe they have some good values, some good stories that we as believers can learn from sometimes. When
Bedros was like, to me, it was huge.
Yeah, Bedros was huge, right? So
Yes.
Bedros is a guy's guy. Came here as an immigrant, worked his way up, is a millionaire now. Talked about hard work, talked about men being men, doing the necessary stuff in order to succeed. Threw a couple F-bombs in there and different stuff. He was pretty respectful.
Right.
But I thought he had a lot of learning. And I did battle with that, because I had Taco God on, and I'll tell you about him in a minute, and he cussed a little bit. He held back. But Bedros went in. Yeah. And so I battled with that, and I told my pastor, I said, hey, I had this guy Bedros on, and I go check out his Instagram and stuff. And I remember we went to a service, and I parked, and it was like a special service out by my house. And I parked, and then my pastor parked next to me. And it was a longer drive for him. He drove out to where I live. And he said, hey, that was an excellent podcast.
Come on.
That was excellent. And his wife goes, every young man needs to hear that podcast. And so I was like, huh. I go, you guys are okay with the Christian? Yeah, it's I get it. He's not saved, but what he said was a lot of Christian kids need to hear that. A lot of Christian
context.
dudes. Yeah, the context of it. So I had Kyle Carnahan on, Superhuman Fathers. These guys' beliefs, they're biblical based.
Yeah.
Work. You're gonna have to do the work. You're gonna suffer. It's gonna be hard. Things are not always gonna go your way, but you're gonna have to persevere. These are all biblically based things. These guys know that, right? And I think sometimes when you have an emphasis with cussing, and these guys weren't cussing to cuss, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Sometimes people would just cuss to cuss, and it's just like, what, blah 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 blah, and it's just like, that doesn't make no sense. These guys cuss with like an emphasis, and you're like, yeah. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, because we have to watch our language. Right. And I always get scared, like if I minister or I'm speaking in the church, like something might slip. And I'm not a cusser. It's so weird. That's my biggest fear before I get up on stage, right? I'm always thinking like,
I'm gonna cuss.
Don't say talk slow, and I don't cuss. You know what I mean? So it's weird.
That used to be my fear back in the day, when my walk wasn't really the greatest.
I don't
be
know.
Like, oh my God, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say?
I don't know what it is. But I think so there's that aspect, right? They have a good story, they have good things. And then I think the aspect of like with Taco God, I liked his gimmick. And he came and he talked really well and he dropped a couple F-bombs and I was a little worried about that, but I was like, that is the first one and the second one are some of my favorite. Probably the first one is like my favorite one because we didn't know each other.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know him. And and the crazy thing is he goes, is this a religious podcast? He asked me that. And I said, it's faith-based, but I have everybody on.
Right.
And he goes, okay. And he showed up. And we had a great time and we became good friends. And then he was my first repeat guest. And he cussed a little bit more. But we had a good conversation about faith. And I learned about him and how he knew Christ at one time. But he felt that when he was younger, that they weren't accepting of him in the church. And it was a great conversation to open. And a lot of people were like, hey, that was good, man, because he really talked about that. And he goes, they felt that.
Right.
And when we talked now, he's like, I know about the Lord, man. And I have a relationship with him now. When would that ever been developed? You know what I mean? Like it could have maybe, but we really, if you listen to that second one, you really see like, man, we're different, but in a lot of ways we're alike. And I was able to share Jesus with him. So I think it opens up that door to share with those guys. And I also think it opens up doors for their listeners,
their followers,
to say, what is this? What is this Street Gospel Podcast? Who is this guy day one? What is this about? And then they listen to another one. Maybe God uses that one to reach that person. And so I always think like there's one guest leads to another, but I think one guest and then their followers, that you have the potential to kind of say, okay, here we go. So yeah, that's my I think that's my strategy, where I'm going to have these guys. And it's funny because I had Kyle and he was over the top. So he was blah, 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 blah. And then it's funny because we put an ad for my church in there. Right. And so Cam's like, hey, Dad, we can't put the ad in this one. And there's been a couple that were like, yeah, don't put it in that one. That's not good. And so, but Kyle cussed a lot. And so the very next day, Taco God hits me. And look at his name, Taco God, right? That was another thing, right? People were like, oh my God, my pastor loves that guy. We invited him to church. It's been crazy. I'll tell a little bit more about that story. So the Kyle comes and then Taco God texts me the next day and he's like, well, it's good to know that somebody cusses more than me on the podcast. And I started laughing and I go, well, you need to come on for part 3 and you can get your crown back. But, my pastor loved the Taco God one and we invited him to church. He moved recently, but we loved him. And it's funny because we talked one day, I was with my pastor and his son and another young kid from the church. And we're going to get some food. And the place we went to was closed. So he's like, what about some tacos? And I go, he goes, let's go to this place. And it was, I think, Sancho's in Huntington Beach. And I go, okay. I go, he goes, hey, Taco God probably did a review on it, huh? And I was like, he probably did. Let me call him right now.
Right.
And so his son, Jordan, and this other kid in the back were like, hey, Joseph. They were like, who's this Taco God guy?
Right.
So I put him on speaker. Hey, Taco God, what's up, bro? How you doing, man? Hey, have you been to Sancho's? Yeah. And so we're like talking. And they're like, who is this guy? I go look up his Instagram. So they start scrolling. They're like, oh, this guy gets paid to give taco reviews. They're like cracking up.
Oh, that's my dream come true.
They're like, this is great.
Yeah.
So they're like, what the heck? And then the very next day, just so happened, Joseph works at Hobby Lobby. Who walks in? Taco God. And he's buying some stuff and he puts on the thing and he goes, and Joseph's like, hey, you're Dave's friend, Taco God. And he's like, yeah, dude. He goes, I was in the car last night when he called you. And so we make the connection.
Right. And
I think that's the key, man. Like God is going to make a connection. Does that mean like everybody that I connect with is going to be saved right on the spot? No. But I found that when I have those people that there is a connection, it's kind of why they came, because they know, like they sense that, like they know that what they're getting into and why they're coming. And so I don't judge them, and I'm able to show a little bit of a witness through the podcast. Like, hey, not everybody hates you. Like, a lot of your principles are good, man. Had the military guy, Angel Cortez, same thing. And it's like, okay. And sometimes does it get hairy? Yeah. Angel started talking about mushrooms and stuff. And he used that for his PTSD. And I thought at first I got a little freaked out because like, I don't want to go there. I don't know about that enough. Am I going to be recommending, people take that or what? And then after I did a little research and I was like, okay, this is not like he's getting high and picking mushrooms in the forest. This is legit medicinal stuff. Okay, great. But I didn't know about it. But, so you might run into that and then you just say, hey, well, we'll just agree to disagree on that. Or I don't believe that, and it's cool. And that's I think that's the best thing sometimes. I think when you say like, yeah, well, I believe this, why I believe that. And we live in this woke culture where it's like, no, what I say is totally 1000% right. And even if it is, what is the angle of this person over here? I had my friend Gabby on. She'll tell you that she grew up in the church. She was my wife's homegirl. She changed my perspective on capital punishment. I am a law. The law's it. That's it.
Right.
And so her husband was doing life and got out after doing 25 years. And she was telling me about the process and what happened to him. And it changed my perspective on life sentences for youth that have been convicted. It really did. I was like, man, you know what? That makes sense. And I kind of backed off of my earlier beliefs of, well, if you do it, that's it, man. You do the crime, you're going to pay the time. I don't care if it's life. And when you commit a crime when you're like 16, 17 years old, your brain's not fully developed. You're not making them conscious decisions. And does that warrant you? This guy's like 40 something years old now, like, does that warrant him being in jail for the rest of his life? I don't know, but that's a conversation we should have.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it opens up the eyes. Now, do I compromise my Christian beliefs? No, I never do.
Never.
Can't.
Never. And that's never can.
But I hope I can persuade them and our other followers to listen to another podcast or even to hear something on my podcast and be like, oh, that's dope. And it's happened. They follow. I have people that followed, and I'm like, how is this guy following me? And why? He's totally not a believer. But
we have like 5,600 followers on the Instagram, and then I think 2,000 on the YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, it's been going up, man, slowly but surely. Frustrating sometimes, but
but now you've actually ventured off and started off a new IG page, Teleos Union.
Yeah.
So what's that all about?
So Teleos Union comes from, let me tell you from the beginning. So a few years ago, I think it's like pre-pandemic, like I was studying one day and I was in the scriptures where it says, it's the Sermon on the Mount,
right?
In Matthew, right? Matthew 5. And I was getting towards the end of that, and it begins to talk about, how as sinners, we, an eye for an eye, we talk about that, an eye for an eye,
right?
And Jesus begins to explain, hey, that's not who we are. If you're somebody slaps you, then you turn the other cheek. If they want to sue you, you give up your tunic, right? If they ask you to go 1 mile, you go 2, right? And I started studying that a little bit, and I was getting into that, and the 1 mile and the 2 mile that comes from that comes from the term go the extra mile,
right?
They would make the Romans would make the Jews carry the soldiers they would have to stop and then carry their equipment to the next post. It was like a mile away. And they would, sometimes the Jews would want to rebel and say, I'm not carrying it, or I'll just do it to there. Yeah. So it was a big thing for Jesus to tell them, hey, if they ask you, because you would have to stop what you were doing to carry their stuff.
What?
Yeah. So if you were working and you were doing something, hey, stop. And you would have to carry their stuff. Well, and it was like they're resentful for that, right? Obviously. Right. And here's Jesus telling them, well, if they ask you to carry it for 1 mile, go 2. I'm like, gee, come on, Lord. Like, what the heck? And then he says, if you only greet those who greet you and forgive those who forgive you. Then he goes in and he says, what more are you doing than others? And that bothered me. And it was like, yeah, what more am I? Am I just doing enough? Am I just being average? You know, I'm just average. So I started reading that and I was like, man, I got to do more. Like this is, and then you read the scriptures a little bit more down. And what does Jesus say? Be perfect because I'm perfect. Oh, so you want me to do all this stuff? You want me to do more, and now you asking me to be perfect because you're perfect. How? You ever thought about that? How do I be perfect? Is that possible? It's not. Right? It's not possible. So I began to study the word perfect. And in the Greek, what is it? It's teleos.
Oh.
And the word teleos it doesn't mean, it has a different meaning in the Greek. And what it means is an unfinished product, a journey, a destination. And if you think of the prefix tele, you think telephone, right?
Communication.
You think telephone, so it's tele, right? Television, seen further than you can actually see in real life, right? But if you really think about it, telescope. And I put those two together and I'm like, telescope. So here I am in this ship and the seas are raging.
Right.
And I get out the telescope and I can see land. I got to make it to land. I see land. We got to get there. Seas are raging. I got to work my way there. I can stay on the sea and just battle these storms and these waves and this ship might not make it. Or am I going to work my way there? And that's what Jesus was talking about. Be perfect because I'm perfect. I'm constantly working my way to get there. I'm gonna keep going till I get there, right? And so it's a final destination, a finished product. And so here's Jesus. He's perfected us, right? He's made us righteous in his eyes. That means that if we're going to get into heaven and we're saved, then that means he perfected us. We're righteous. That means we're perfect now. But our human flesh has to meet his criteria sometimes. So in order to get better, we got to keep pushing the limit.
Right.
So I think with Teleos Union, I wanted to make that. I wanted to challenge men, and I didn't want to get out of my lane either. So I was battling. I don't want to be the guy that knows everything. So what do I know? Well, I know some fitness.
Right.
I know that we have to be spiritually better. And I know that we have to be better husbands, better fathers, better employees, better workers, better servers in church, all things that we can do better. Right. And I said, I'm going to stay in this lane: fitness, faith, and family. Let's stay in that lane, how we can be better. So I began to I put it out there on Street Gospel and I had like 40 guys hit me up. I need this in my life. And I was like, okay. And it wasn't just like guys from my church. It was guys from my church, guys from other churches, guys from one guy, I think he's in Germany.
Wow.
And yeah, so we've been like getting guys different pay. And then we barely started it. And we've had 3 meetings. We have like 110 guys. And it's a mixed bag of guys. We got firefighters, we got business owners, we got dads, we got single guys, we got guys that are in shape, guys that are out of shape. And so it's been good and it's been challenging. We got guys.
Good. We qualify.
I am in shape. I'm round shape.
So a lot of guys wonder why I get into the physical part. And I say this, I said, look, there's a couple of reasons why. One, I think if you don't have anything, you can get in shape. Right?
Right.
You don't have ministry. You don't have no status. You don't have no family. You maybe you don't even have a job. What can I do? What's immediately? I can get in shape. It doesn't take nothing. I can go running. I go to the park. I can lift weights. Well, if I don't have weights, I can do push-ups.
Yeah.
I can do it. And what happens? You start feeling good about yourself.
Right.
So your head's raised a little bit. You're feeling good. Okay, so that's one thing. I think when you in shape, I think right off the bat, people respect you. Maybe not. It may not be a good it may be a little judgmental, but if you're not in shape, right, to think like, oh, this guy. But I think when a guy's in shape, what do you see? I see discipline.
Wait, I think it was either on your post or Pedro's post that he's like, when you show up looking like a slob, I'm paraphrasing. When you show up looking like a slob, people won't say anything to your face, but behind doors, they don't respect you.
That was Pedro's for sure.
Because I'm like, it's so before people get all hyphy on here, it's not so much just because of the vanity of it, but it's even biblical when Paul writes, he's like, we are a temple of the Holy Spirit. So if we got to take care of it. So if it's like, I know for me and my wife, we always talked about, being disciplined because we want to be an example, and we keep pushing it off. And then we've actually come to a point where we're going to start our journey. We're going to start, getting back to, because her and I, we used to have gym dates when we started dating. We were both in shape.
Aw.
It was
Jim's Burger?
huh? No, 24.
Oh, my bad.
24 hours.
My bad.
No, the
Okay. I was
GYM.
Oh, my bad. I was
The Gaim.
The game. No, we used to meet up at 24 Hour Fitness because open 24 hours. So we used to meet up and work out together, and we missed that. And like you talked about earlier, we allowed life to become a part of it.
Right.
Now, again, God has been speaking to me and her about being ready, being disciplined,
Right.
and having a plan, getting started in that aspect on the physicality of being in shape, being healthy. We've dropped off on that. We've been disciplined in so many other areas.
Yeah.
But that one main, it's a key. Like, I don't know, like set up the rest of it.
It is a key. And okay, so if you're young, you don't have anything, maybe things are not going, maybe if you're older, things are not going for you,
Right.
you can get in shape, right? And you'll feel better about yourself. So that's one thing you can go. May not have the best job, I may not be great in my marriage, I may not be all these things I need to work on.
Right.
But what can I do right now that can make a difference? I can work out. I can feel a little bit better about myself. So that's number one, right? Just feeling good about yourself,
Right.
and having some confidence. In getting in the gym, you develop some discipline, which, Paul said it, it has some value. Why is that in there? It's in there.
It is.
He's saying that it has some value. Well, it has some value, then I need to do it. Number two is, if I'm in shape and not sick or not, tired or have some sort of diabetes or some sort of disease, what I can do more in the kingdom. I can serve more.
Right.
Because why? Because I'm not tired. Because I'm not waking up and feeling, oh man, it's Sunday. I just wish I could just stay in today. No, I'm waking up and I'm like, feel good about myself and get to church today. I can serve. I can do more. I can be there for my kids when I get home from work, because I don't feel disgusted and I don't have to take all this medication. I don't have to rest, 30 hours a day. I can spend time with my wife.
Right.
So being healthy allows you to serve. It really does.
It does.
In a better way. So those two things. And then number three, for men, we're the provider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are the provider. If you're a man out there and you listen to this and you don't think it's your responsibility, sorry. It's your responsibility. You are the provider. If you're not healthy, who's going to provide for your wife and kids? When I die, I don't want them to have a car wash for me, or need to have a car wash
Come
for me.
on.
It's a fact, right? That's the least thing I want them to worry about. I want them to know, like, hey, he provided. He took care of that for us, right?
Mhm.
Hopefully I live for a long time.
Right.
But I don't want them to have to worry about things. I am the provider. That means I got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
How do I stay healthy? It ain't going to be eating a dozen donuts on Sunday morning.
Just 6.
Even 6, right? I eat one donut a week, and that's on Sunday morning before church.
There you
That's
go.
that's my thing. But being healthy for that, right?
Right.
You're taking care of your family. You want to be sick and then your wife has to take care of you. That's not good.
No.
Mm.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
It's ugly. And then the last thing is, like you said, right? The way your wife met you, was it totally different than this?
Way different.
Way different, right? So people are going to get mad at this.
Say it.
People are going to get so mad at this. It's disrespectful to your spouse when you let yourself go.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Come on.
We talk about this in Marriage 100.
Yeah.
It is disrespectful if you were all about, looking good, hair combed, dressing nice, right?
Right.
Looking good for her. And listen, I want everybody, especially the ladies out there, if your husband met you and let's say it's not about being super skinny or looking like every girl on Instagram, right?
No.
It's not about that. What did your husband fall in love with?
Your best self.
Your best self, right? We were all about that. We were all about that when we were trying to win them over. We won them and we let ourselves go. That is not right. That's disrespectful. And it's for the women and for the ladies. Continue to look good for your man. And I'm not saying you got to have some crazy body like some chick on Instagram or whatever, right? You just need to take care of yourself and look good. Grow old gracefully and look good for him. Guys, I'll preach to the guys. Same thing. You need to look good for your wife, right? And what does that create? I'm looking good for my wife. What? She's going to lust after me even more. We're going to have good sex. We're going to have good sex even better than before. Hey, I want to spend more time with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all positive things. Those are 4 things why we should take care of ourselves. And they're all meaningful things, right? I mean, better marriage, feel better about ourselves. Nobody has to take care of us. And we're the provider. We're providing for our families. So, and we're able to serve too. We're able to serve better. So people get mad at us because we talk about that. And then we will get people in the class and lady will raise her hand. Well, what if we're not? Well, we can't be on skinny. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying did you look like that before you got with your husband? Or did you have a little makeup on, comb your hair and dress
some
nice?
Chanel?
Yeah. What is your husband like? How does he like you?
Right.
He's going to probably say he likes you just the way you are because that's the right answer. But in his heart of hearts, he's probably saying, man, that's not the woman I married.
I don't know. I like mine with messy hair.
Okay.
I like her.
That's the way. Hair. And then does she keep it messy for you?
Not intentionally, but yes.
Okay. I like certain things. My wife says she thinks I'm the most hottest when I wear a white t-shirt and jeans. She said, that's the way I loved you.
We can pull it off. At 40, I would have never thought at 49 that you were 49. Even when
next month, 49, yeah.
Dude, when I talked to Diana, I was like, isn't David the youngest? She's like, no, he's the oldest. I was like, my bad.
Thank you. But I tried, and I was at a point where I probably let myself go. There was times when I was like, man, what happened? You just go like, oh, I'm just going to accept this dad bod and that's just the way it is. And that was like, early. And I was just like, well, and I was active playing hoop and different things, right. But then you get in a mode and you're like, no, but I feel better, my kids make fun of me because I'll walk around the house with no shirt on and I'll flex on my son. And he'd be like, oh, you think you're all cool because you go to the gym every day? And I said, and I laugh, but in reality, like I feel good about myself.
Right.
I feel good that I feel good. You know what I mean? Like, man, I'm 49. I feel like healthy, and it's great. And that doesn't mean that something can't happen to me, but it means that I'm going to try to do everything I can to prevent that.
But even if something did happen to you, say for some, God forbid, some illness falls on you, your body's at its optimal level to be able to combat it.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be at the same level as somebody else that, say, for example, me, I haven't, thank God I haven't been diagnosed with diabetes or anything, but I know I am at the worst shape of my life I've ever been.
Right.
And if something fell on me, I would have to combat it a lot, like 2 or 3 times harder than your body would.
Right.
Because of what you've done to it.
Yeah. And I think you owe it to your wife and your kids.
Oh.
Right. To be. And then what example do we set for them? Right. What example do we set? And I see kids and they're there's this pre-diabetes bodies and health, and they're like 9 years old. And they're eating, junk every day. And it's like, well, gee, where are their parents at? And you listen to the parents, and the parents are thrashed. And you're like, you got to be better. It's totally taboo to talk about that in church because we think like, why are you judging, brother?
But when did health, being healthy phically become vanity, though?
It can be, though. Right?
It can, but I'm saying
I do battle with that. With like, I'm not, I post stuff on the telly of working out, and I post other guys,
Right.
And they'll send me in. Hey, great job, dude. And I think like, is this kind of just like, it's hard to get away from that, right? But it could be a vanity thing. It could be a thing of look at me.
But we don't even talk about it in the church anymore, though.
No.
Like it got all clumped up. Like if you are into your fitness and your health, then you're vain.
Yeah.
But if you are dying in the slob, then you're sold out for God. Like,
Right.
how does that make sense?
It doesn't, right? It doesn't make sense. I mean, you got to be healthy. Like I said, you got to be healthy, man. You got to take care of yourself.
Right.
If I'm healthy, then I can do more for God. I can do more for my family. I can serve more. I'll feel better about myself.
Right.
You automatically, whether you like it or not, when you see somebody that's in shape, you're like, gee, dang, what the heck is that guy doing? You're going to automatically feel better. I think that's one of the aspects of the teleos. And does it get controversial? Maybe for some people, but
Controversial how?
because they think like, well, brother, you're judging me on my body or you're judging me on my health. And I'm like, well, I'm not judging you. I'm just like, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get all spiritual, bro, do you believe that eating junk food for the rest of your life could kill you? Yeah. So you're committing
suicide slowly.
So they're breaking the commandment.
You're being gluttonous.
I mean, you want to get all religious on it. But
No,
I think, okay, we're Christian men, right?
Right.
We're Christ followers. We rep Christ. Shouldn't we look the best?
Yes.
Shouldn't we be the best? Shouldn't we have some sort of excellence? Shouldn't we be perfect because he's perfect? There should be some sort of excellence. Why, when it comes to our body, we say no? Because why? Because it's hard.
Well, it's hard work.
It's hard to go to the gym every day.
All this just reminds me of that joke that goes around within Christians, like, oh, you're supposed to be a temple, but you look like a cathedral.
I like that. I'm going to use that one.
Right. Like you just said right there, like, oh, we're amongst Denny. I'm like, dude, like I'm venting right now because we've been having this epiphany. I've been like slacking on starting it. And like on Thursday, I attended a funeral. I couldn't even wear the 2 suits that I have in my closet. I couldn't wear them. Why?
I've been there before. I feel trust me.
The trousers didn't fit, and I couldn't close the jacket. And everybody's like, and for me, it was a gut punch because I like to dress up. I thrive to put on a suit. Look nice.
They made us chulo.
Looks decent.
They made us chulo.
I look better now than I did when I was like 35. You know what I mean? And I feel better.
And that's
there's some aches and pains that I don't appreciate.
But that comes with age.
That comes with age. I appreciate it. But I like that my wife works out. I'm attracted to her. I said, man, you look good. Like, wow.
Right.
Like I'm happy to be your husband because you look good. She's like, well, I'm old now. She's like, I'm 48 and I'm old now. But I go, but you look good. And that's all I could ask for. Like, I want to be my optimal best at this age or that age. Do I see guys in the gym that are older than me that are like, I'm like, dang, bro, how old is that fool? That dude's like 50 something. And he
look cut.
Yeah, he's like ripped. And then I get in the flesh and I'm like, he's probably taking juice. Yeah, he's taking
that TRT.
He's taking HGH. That fool, look at him. You're all in that. And then something else.
A little bit of GF1.
Yeah. You're not natty.
Yeah, it makes me feel better about myself, right? I'm all natty. No, you know what I mean? So, but it's we should want to do that. And it's not talked about in the church. And I think, I was talking to this young guy the other day at church and the kid's in shape, man. He's CrossFit dude. And he's like, we said it at the same time. Like, he said it, he goes, I want my wife. And I go, yes, you want to look good for your wife. You want her to desire you. You want her to be like, wow. You know what I mean? Like when Adam saw Eve for the first time, I'm sure he was like, dang.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, take care of yourself. I mean, so that's one aspect. And then just being better in our faith, growing there, pushing that. I know we got to get going here.
Oh no.
And then,
just the wife texted me.
And then, I know I'm surprised my wife hasn't texted me either. I'm hungry. So I think that, and then in your family, I think we can be better. And so I wanted to challenge men. It's for me, it's challenging for me too. You know, there's times when I think stuff or say stuff,
Right.
and I'm like, I'm setting an example here. Is this what the leader of this group is supposed to be doing? No.
Right.
You know, I was very transparent the other day too. I was like, look, if I post stuff, I'm doing it. And if I don't post it, if I'm not doing it, then I will post it too. And so the other day I said, I had a great week. I hit the gym. I read. I should have prayed more. Next week's goal, pray more. And so today in the morning I woke up and it was raining outside. I just went to, the gym wasn't open yet. I wanted to just make a cup of coffee and read a little bit, read my new book.
Right.
And I was like, no, word first. Let's post it for the teleos. And then we're gonna pray. And then I was like, not gonna pray sitting down. I'm gonna pray on my knees. And this is nothing to brag about, but this is what the challenge that I had, right? And I'm thinking like, you're the leader. You got to do it. So it holds me accountable big time.
Right.
And so got on my knees, prayed. You know what I mean? And then got to go to the gym. That bed looked good, changing, and see my wife all cuddled and still sprinkling outside. I'm like, yeah, that looks really good today. I got to get to the gym though.
All right.
So it keeps me accountable. And we've had great, some good testimonies. We had a guy the other day, he came, I think last Saturday, and we had a meeting in the morning, and I encouraged the guys. And then he said in the evening, he went to go see Jesus Revolution. And he said the Holy Spirit spoke to him and said, hey, you're going to witness I want you to go talk to that guy. He was like, come on, man. Like, the heck? It's not in him. He's a chill dude. He's like, man, he said the guy came up to him.
Wow.
After the movie. So he said he went for it. He goes, dude, the meeting this morning gave me the courage. I witnessed to him and I led him to the Lord in the movie theater right there. And I was like, yes. Got guys that signed up for the gym. I got a gym pass. I've been going every day. Good. Keep going. Had a guy come to our church last week, him and his wife, so they showed up at our church. I was like, man, he's like, I go, come to church. God will help you. Come. And it was through that meeting. So there's been some great testimonies, and I'm trying to be like my dad, man. Just make a difference in people's lives and help them and disciple them and encourage them and all the battles and suffering that I had to go through in my marriage and just trying to be a better husband and learn how to be a better husband. The times when I didn't have great jobs or making a lot of money, the times when I wasn't being used at church, or I thought that I should have been used more, right? Because I was somebody, all those times when I was on the back burner, or I felt that God forgot about me, or the church forgot about me. Through all that, wow. I just want to give that back. So that's where that started, man.
All right. Well, David, it's been amazing with those, last bit of nuggets that you've left us, and apparently with hunger in our bellies as well.
I'm hungry too, man.
I know. I want to thank you.
Some peanuts over there.
Go for them afterwards. Again, we want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been different. This interview is different. Again, podcaster to podcaster. So.
Cool.
A little bit of thug life to thug life.
Cool,
It's been different. It's enriching
about a lot of stuff.
I like where the flow went. It's been amazing. Every interview we do, we kind of have a list of like what we're gonna talk about. Kind of went unscripted, but it's been great, and we really appreciate your time.
It was new for me too, man. I'm never the guy that answers the questions. I'm always the guys asking the questions. So I appreciate you guys having me out, man. I had a blast. Hopefully, I didn't talk too much, and
it's been great.
Don't turn your listeners. I think I'll probably be better than Art, though, for sure. You know what I mean?
We can't wait to have him on here and see the counterpoint of view.
Yeah.
But again, thank you for coming on. Such a blessing to have us. Such a blessing for you to have us.
Yes.
As a consideration,
thank you guys, man, for having me. I appreciate Louie and Danny and City Reach and having me out, man. It was a blast. I was very excited to do this podcast, and I wish the best for you guys. If you guys need anything or have any questions or any way I can help, I'm always available.
Next time I have a flat, I'll call you.
I got AAA. It's no problem.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Remnant Podcast. Again, like, subscribe, give us your positive comments. Apparently, give us your negative comments too now.
Yes.
Danny loves those.
I know. This is going to be great.
Put at Danny.
I know. Again, if you need some help, if this episode touched you or you feel like you can relate to anything that was on here, please comment, hit us up. And if, again, we'll always try to help you as best we can. If we can't find help, if we can't help you, we will always find the help. Thank you guys for listening.
Peace.